get those buttons to work very smoothly today. So welcome everybody who's joining us for our Ask Gun Questions episode this week. It's been, 1 week, or has it been 2 weeks since we've had a show? So we've got some catching up to do. Plus, well, Tony's been on some adventures. We've kind of been holding off, talking off air here so that we could chat on air about it. But yeah, again, thanks for everybody who's joining us. We try to do this every Saturday or whenever we can. And we ask questions that come into the website, askgunquestions.com. And then really more often the questions that come in to the people from the people that are joining us live. So if you're doing that from one of the platforms that we're broadcasting to, welcome. Tony's joining us from New Jersey. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, man. Glad to be here.
And like I say, has it been 2 weeks or has it been just that week? Seems like a lot's been going on.
I don't even know. I think maybe a week.
It's just been a
Wait
week.
a minute. It had to be 2 weeks because last Saturday I was in Ohio.
Yeah, you were
So
in
it had to be 2
on
weeks.
last weekend, but I don't know if it was the weekend before the show too. Oh, I see. My Rumble failed here at the last minute. So we were going to be on Rumble, but I guess it crapped out. It sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. Anyway, so yeah, what's been happening? I know you had a diversity.
Well, we had a diversity shoot Thursday, which July 3rd. That was great. I don't know if I talked about the diversity shoot we had on Juneteenth, but that was cool. That was at Gun for Hire, and so that was a success. We had a lot of people there, a lot of new people there, and almost a 50-50 split between men and women, if I remember correctly. Thursday, we had one at Union Hill Gun Club in Monroe, and it was definitely female heavy. We had actually ladies bring their families by, ladies that have been coming to our event. One got almost all of her kids to come. The other got her son to come, and she thanked me profusely, saying that this is something that they wouldn't have been able to do together if it wasn't for me hosting this event. And she was really, really happy that she was able to get her son out and pull triggers. And I had a bunch of fun with them, and we ate some really good pizza. Found a new pizza place that I'm going to be using when I'm over in Monroe. Awesome.
I mean, I don't know, but I
And
would assume as like a parent having some familiarity with the subject matter that you're going to introduce your kid to was probably pretty comfortable for her, right? Like to have been to your shoot before and then be able to introduce her kid knowing what was coming.
oh, definitely. She because again, if you guys, I mean, you guys do know me, but if you know me, my shoot is just me on an 11. The only thing I don't do is curse, but other than that, this is what you get. And just, I think she did it and didn't tell her son anything, and he just walked into me wide open and just laughed his butt off pretty much the entire time. And then another lady, she bought her 14-year-old son and her daughter that just graduated from college, and her daughter's fiance, who was Marine Corps, excuse me, Army lieutenant. And he had a great time. Everyone had fun. Last week, was it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
Did he tell you
I was at.
did he tell you what kind of
What was that?
lieutenant? What did he do? What lieutenant doing?
He just got in, finished his schooling. He's infantry. He's going to be infantry. He goes to
Oh,
Ranger School in November. He just got out of friggin' air assault school where I goofed on him wholeheartedly because only the Army takes 12 days to teach someone how to get off a helicopter, and they call it a school.
really, really fast though.
Yeah. All right, get out the helicopter. All right, get in the helicopter.
Exactly. You forgot about how to get back in the helicopter occasionally.
Mm-mm. Now the Marine Corps teaches us to rappel and fast rope off a tower and get off a helicopter out of the chassis of a helicopter.
I don't think we ever talked about it, but did you ever get to see the Ospreys? Was that a thing when you were in?
No,
Was that
nope. I mean, the Osprey's been a thing they've been working on since the 70s, but I never got to see one live.
me either? I
And
don't
then,
even know if I've ever been to an air show with one. Like they're new for me too. So that's what I was wondering. I saw something the other day about the Marines were using that to jump it on and off, and I was like, I think, are they trying to pull the all? I know the Marines were going to go to all those, but I don't know if that's really practical.
Oh no, it's not. I mean, because they still have the Huey. I think they're on the Zulu or Viper
And
version of Huey.
Chinooks seem so good for moving people around in all those environments.
We still got the 53. We still got the Chinook. Is it Chinook the Marine Corps? Or the Army has
I don't
one
know.
has a
I don't know if the
46,
Air
one
Force
has a
has them or
well,
who have, but they move people around in them
well,
all.
yeah, yeah, no. The Air Force. I mean, the Army has one. The Marine Corps has the other. The double rotor CH-46 and CH-47s. But dude, GunCon. So I didn't know whether I was going to come to GunCon. John has been inviting me to every one of them. John from the Gun Collector has been inviting me to every one.
This is like number
Uh,
5 or 6. This has been
I
going for a
think
while
this is five. I think this is four or five.
now. Okay.
Uh, Somebody had the audacity to say, "Oh, he's been having GunCon for 20 years." I'm like, you
Not
just say you don't know what you're talking about. Because I've
nothing.
been reading the comments. What was that?
I mean, except for a couple of things, nothing's been going for 20 years. But anyway, go ahead.
Y- Yeah, exactly. Well, it was in the comments section because of the drama that happened there. I'll talk about that silliness last. Um, Clover was the one that really tripped it over for me. He was like, "You really need to go. You really need to go." So I'm like, "All right, dude." He was like, "It's different enough than everything else that makes it worthwhile." Okay, cool. So I went, sent everything out. John was really happy that I went. I was like, "That's awesome." Um, First, the Q&A was done on Thursday with the content creators on stage. So we're talking Curtis from VSO Channel, Kevin Dixie from No Other Choice, John, of course, from the Gun Collective. We had Mr. Guns and Gear, Ashley Hablinski from, well, it used to be the Wyoming Gun Museum or something, Bill Cody, something of the West. But she's also been on television shows. She's been a consultant for the industry. She's testified in front of Senate and court. She was there. I think there was one more guy there from the firearms blog. And if I'm missing somebody, oh, Sean from We Like Shooting. So they were there on stage to actually from answer questions from the crowd, and the crowd was made up of industry people like the vendors and content creators that came on Thursday. And I think a lot of people missed an opportunity to actually get up there and ask questions to people who would probably not answer their DMs because they get so many messages, and they could have answered questions face to face. And I don't think a lot of people were ready for that. Um, but they gave out information unvarnished. They didn't dance around it. They gave uh, decent info, I felt, that normally you'd have to pay for stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
This is like
Uh,
industry info or
yeah,
something.
industry info, content creation info. How do you start? How do you keep going? How do you trigger sponsors? What are in the industry, the guys that were the vendors from the different companies, they ask questions like, how do we know who to give stuff to? Because we give stuff out and we get no return on investment. How do you do that? And then actually, I came with my boy Angelo, who's slated to be one of my on the board of directors, and he got up and asked a question about because I was like, I have a question, but I don't know how to phrase it. And Angela's like, I think I have the same question. We put our heads together, and he was like, I'll go ask it. I was like, all right, cool. He didn't have the same question as me, but the result was the same when he talked about how do we get the industry to help organizations like ours out. It was like the industry complains about not having hands-on product and who to send product to, and we have hands-on a few hundred times a year, every other week. It's like if you want to get your product out there, you send to somebody that actually uses your product and has a social media presence. That would be what we do. So that I was actually mentioned by name by at least three of the panelists up there. So that really made it easier for the next day when we went to the range, and Angelo and I went around handing out business cards and talking to the competition we're interested in. So we have a lot more. One, it's more intimate. It was a lot less people than you'd have at SHOT, than you'd have at NRA. We were spread out better. It was a lot better than even media day at SHOT Show. It was just smaller. The range was smaller, but it was nice, and it was way more relaxed. So you got to speak to people and you got to talk to the people in the companies. Range day was awesome. We got to shoot some really cool guns. High Point had their AR out there and their AR pistol, their AR carbine. So you got to put rounds through it. And when people go, it's no big deal. I'm like, yes, it is a big deal. Delton's gone out of business. Anderson's gone. High Point is now in that spot where you have a mil spec AR-15 that's sub $500. I'm like, sorry, but outside of what's the name, Bear Creek Arsenal, there's nobody left in that zone, in that niche. So High Point is there, and I like it because it's a decent gun, and it's a very good starting place for a gun. It's a very good brother-in-law gun where it's just mil spec, nothing spectacular about it. It's $500 MSRP, which means there'll probably be less, but still $500 MSRP. You buy it, it's good to go. Stick it in the closet. If you want to run rounds through it, cool. But I'm talking about as a brother-in-law, the emergency gun or the backup gun or whatever you want to call it. You can set it up and put it away. I was impressed by that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, they have Phoenix Trinity there that has like $4,500 to $6,000 and $7,000 2011s. And I know those guys. I've done video with their stuff when I was at We Shoot in their studio. And to get a chance to actually pull triggers on, guns that cost more than my first car or my second car or my third car. But to get hands on was really cool to talk to the companies. I got to check out the Radiant Afterburner and all of their stuff that Radiant has, including their Model 1 rifle, Tandem Cross, Gideon Optics. Like they had just a lot of people out there. I got to shoot the HKs and the HK Langdon tactical version of the P30 and the P30L. So that was a lot of fun. And if you can come as a creator, I really suggest you go if it's within 4 or 5 hours. All 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because I think it is what you make of it. If you're somebody that just wants to go to it like an NRA show, because that's the part that's open to the public for $50, 2 or 3 hours is a good drive for that too. Now on that was done on Saturday. That's what happened on
You're
Saturday.
saying
Range day was
you're saying
Friday.
it's worth like a 3 to 4 hour drive as a creator, and maybe a 2 hour drive as somebody who just wants to show up and see some stuff
I
like a
think
gun.
it's. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth. I mean, truthfully, a 6 hour drive as a creator because I came from Jersey. Rusty came from Tennessee, and it was worth the drive if you put the effort in to one get FaceTime with the people that create, and you can ask them questions or at least meet them and network with a lot of other creators. People go to things and don't put the effort in after they get there to take full advantage of it. Bring your business cards, talk to people, work out collabs, get on podcasts as a guest. Like all of that networking can happen there when you're talking to people. Like Chris was there, Clover was there. I mean, truthfully, it'd have been a mistake to start naming the people that were there, but they are people that put in work, that put out good content, and that are in many of these shows. And you had a great chance to actually meet them and pick their brain, not just the people on stage, but the people that were walking around. And I think that's a great opportunity, and it's definitely worth 6 hours in a vehicle or flying into Cleveland if you want to, but definitely, a drive, a couple tanks of gas, and a hotel stay. Saturday was the one that was open to the public, and it kicked off as content creators. We could be there at 9. They'd already set up a back room, a green room for us, and also a back room. I helped them set that up Thursday. You didn't even have to bring your own equipment, and you could do podcasts there. They had 4 podcast mics, a board, and cameras set up. All you had to bring was your memory cards, plug them in, and you could do your show. Everybody had a half hour scheduled that you can put in if you wanted it. And I thought that was really great. I didn't take advantage of it. Kind of wish I had though, because they had the first spot open. Nobody wanted it because it was at 10 o'clock. Sadly, I mean, I missed that opportunity. But Clover got the last one, and we booked. So Clover interviewed me at the end of the day at the 5:30 to 6 spot. So I got in on it, and I got to do an interview. What went on and what drama happened
I
as
think I would
soon
look
as
I would look at it less
oh,
that you missed out on the opportunity than Clover took the opportunity from you by taking that last slot.
oh yeah, definitely.
He robbed you
Damn
from
him. But okay, so Saturday was supposed to be open to the public. And I got there at 9. Actually, I got there at 8:30. A lot of stuff's going on. I went in, set up my chairs at the High Point booth,
this is
which is right across. What
we're
was
gonna
that?
talk we're gonna talk about the drama now. All the behind the
Yep,
scenes.
all the behind the scenes stuff that I was catching dribs and drabs of it as it was happening, but you couldn't put it together. You didn't know what to put faith in, right? You just really didn't know. So we came in at 9. Excuse me, I came in at 8:30. Put my chairs up, put them in the High Point thing. The guys from High Point showed up later. I stayed with them. I stayed in the Airbnb with the High Point guys. We were right across from the microphone, so you couldn't get closer.
I knew it,
Now,
but
when
you
we were there,
literally just admitted you're in bed with High Point.
well, at least in the Airbnb with High Point. Uh, so if you're gonna sell out, no. But if you're gonna sell out for a free place to stay in Cleveland. Uh, we were right across from the mic. Now, when we were there Thursday, the air condition was on and it was cool. You get there Saturday, the air's not on. What happened? Oh, somehow it turned off. Okay. Well, people started showing up and it started getting hotter and
Oh,
hotter and hotter
hold on.
as more people. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me interrupt again. Because I don't know where I have a vague idea of where this was, but I think everybody just assumes this was in like some kind of convention center. So what is the
Oh,
facility in Cleveland?
all right. It was in the Twist Drill Building, which is a place that was an old factory. It has the old school, you buzz for the elevator, and it had freight elevators going up, so it didn't have modern anything. So just imagine a building in the 40s and the 50s. That's
Like a
where we
movie
were.
or something. Okay.
Yeah, it was just an open thing. It had cracked windows. It was hot as F, um, really hot. They had food trucks to do to come in and park on the street. I think it was 5 or 6 of them. And then they had people all the way around the building lining up to go in with their tickets. Of course, again, because I was media, I went in through another entrance and I was there an hour earlier. So I never saw the line outside for the people to come in. The event's supposed to kick off for the public at 10. Well, people
Plus,
started
it's
coming in.
part of your
Go ahead.
writer. Part of your writer is you don't have to see the little people.
Yes, yes. I mean, when you're rolling with High Point, I'm a baller. So my whole thing was not to get stuck in the line because it was humid out. It was hot the day before it arranged. And I'm like, all right, it's going to be hot today. Let's get in. Let's get our water. Let's get my chairs because you always want to sit down at this event, standing up for a long. Oh, they had chairs set up, by the way, in front of in one part of the event, they had chairs and a stage set up for the panels. And in front of the stage, of course, they had chairs. I don't know how many. Off the top of my head, I'm assuming 200 maybe. I don't know. I'm pulling the number out of my butt because I really never thought about counting it. But they had chairs set up, but they were plastic little rickety chairs that I didn't trust. So when I sat in them on Thursday, I sat on the very edge and perched myself like on my legs. I wouldn't put all of my weight on it. And I really didn't want to do that the entire time. So I bought a chair, built for someone of my girth. And I had that over in the High Point booth. Well, the way they had the speaker set up, because the rest of the floor was the show. So just imagine trying to do a Q&A on the floor of NRA or trying to do a Q&A on the floor of SHOP. you'd be overwhelmed. So what the noise level would just be really high, and you wouldn't be able to hear the people on stage. So what they did was set up speakers around the seated area with the speakers pointed inward. So if you were sitting in a crowd, you could hear clearly what people were saying on stage,
Okay.
uh, and and you could hear clearly when someone walked around to the mic and asked a question. You could hear it clearly. But if you're sitting just directly on the other side of the speaker, the ambient noise was so loud you couldn't hear anything. So sitting at the high point booth, which you walk around a table and take 3 steps, you're in front of the microphone, you could not hear what was being said.
Okay.
So I was there, and Ashley Hablinski was on stage and said she didn't have any photos of her on stage and asked me if I could take some. So I told her I'd take some and shoot them to her. The event started. Okay, hold on. I'm skipping. Hold on. The event started at 10. By 10:10, because I saw Johnny B walk in, I saw some dude in suits walk in, and then I saw fire marshals and cops all over the place. Now, I went to the back to cool off because, again, by the time it started at 10, it was really hot. And I think I was there with some people, and they were like, something, something, the fire marshal's here.
I mean, I guess it makes sense if you're talking like an old fashioned building that's just really a big
Yeah.
room, right? And then you have a lot of people in
Yeah.
there with no AC. They probably have like weird, well, some kind of calculation that says, this is too many people, it's too hot or whatever.
So you think so, right? But again, the air conditioning worked Thursday, and now it's Saturday, and the air conditioning isn't working. And they had on floor coolers, and all of a sudden that wasn't working. What the heck is going on? You have coolers right here. They're not blowing. So now they had to go get fans, and they have big black fans set up blowing. So now that's adding even more to the ambient noise. Well, okay. So I'm going by what I heard at the top. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Then it was like Johnny B and I forgot the other guy's name, and the Attorney General of Montana, who was
Overtack.
Missouri. No, no, Clovertack didn't get thrown out, but the other guy did. Fred, Frank, something like that. I forgot the name of the show. Anyway, out, out. You got
Oh, the
trespassed. You
people that
can't
got
be here.
that got thrown out. You mean? Okay, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, yeah. All of a sudden they got thrown out for no reason. Don't even know why. I heard, yeah, they waited until it started for them to get thrown out. And I'm like, who the heck is them? Oh, the Attorney General and Johnny B. I'm like, I just saw Johnny B 5 minutes ago. Yep, nope, he can't be here. They trespass. They threatened to arrest him. That's why all the cops were here.
And you know
Well, what the
them?
heck is going on?
Them?
Yeah, I know Johnny. And I'd met the other guy a few times, just handshake acquaintance. And we actually hung out at dinner on Thursday night. But I didn't know him. And they were like, yeah, they trespassed them out of here. I'm like, what could they have done? Like, I don't know. I'm not getting the whole story, so I left it alone because I was asking questions in the room in the back. Nobody had a whole story. So I went back out. I said hello to, Second Amendment Foundation, talked to Adam Kraut, talked to the guys over at GOA, um, talked to John Farnham. And it was just a weird thing. Like, why are there so many police officers here? Why is the fire marshal going around looking at everything? So 11 o'clock or so, maybe 12, again, they had Q&As up on stage. They had different people up. I went to get something to eat with the guys from We Like Shooting, Kevin Dixie. We were all downstairs because we wanted to get something to eat before the elite panel started.
I'm assuming Kevin KD got some sherbet.
No, no, the king of Sherbert Forest didn't get sherbet. He hung out with us. Got pulled pork. So we're there and we're looking, and there's 4 food trucks. I took video of it. I didn't know I was taking video of something that was going sideways. Well, there were supposed to be 6. There's supposed to be 5 or 6 food trucks. So you knocked out a significant percentage of the number of food trucks. So there's a line. And I'm talking, you're waiting 45 minutes to an hour in line to get this food.
And
I'm
they're
like,
just rocking and still putting it out at max capacity. It's
they're putting it out of mass capacity. Do you see the street? They got cops on the corner. And they had some people from the city of Cleveland there, like politician types. And they were walking around like holding their nose. Somebody said they look like a bunch of Karens but it was something suspicious about it, but we didn't know what.
Okay, but they're out
Um,
there doing something
they're out
in
there.
like an associated with what you're doing, not like something else. They just happen to be on the same street corner. Like they're there because of y'all.
Mm-mm. Yeah, they're there because of us, and we're like, what the heck is going on? And then it's just rumors. Oh well, they said people couldn't come into the place because there were too many. And there was, well, we were worried about coming outside to get something to eat that they won't let us back in the building because they're over capacity.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
we able to go get back.
so I get you.
We got we got back into the building and we went back into the green room in the room where they were having a podcast, which they were next to each other. So it was Kevin, myself, and Harrison from Double Tap Coalition were in one room, and I'm like, "What's going on?" Because we were seated and it was just us in the back room, so you're not talking over everybody. People not walking by to hear half of a conversation and
Well,
take wrong information.
let me interrupt again because I have a quick question. That's
Go ahead.
just kind of off
Hmm.
topic. Just be quick. Uh, was there what do they call those? Like when we went go to Shot Show, how we get a little credit for food? Was it like that, or did you have to pay
Yes,
for your own food?
yes. We got a little ticket
Okay,
when we went out to get the food. So the food was free unless you ordered other stuff. The
and
food was one thing was free.
I was kind of curious, but then that also explains why the food trucks would get slammed because they can kind of prepare, but then as soon as somebody says like, "But I want an extra order of fries" or something, then they get all screwed up, and then it gets pretty hectic. Especially when there's limited
Yeah,
times.
yeah. I'm assuming it did, and I mean the sides weren't crazy. It was like $6. Um, it was good, and it was a decent amount of food. The food truck we went to was on point. So I'm in the room, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And they were like, "The fire marshal tried to shut the whole thing down." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, don't know why, don't know what's going on, and they told the attorney general he couldn't be here, and they said they trust. I'm like, why? Like, I have no idea, right? Well, then John comes in the room. John comes in the back room with us because that's where it's cooler, it's air conditioned, and John sits down and goes, "Let's not talk about that now or in here because there's cameras and microphones in this room." And if you looked in the corner, yes, they had security cameras in the room that might have been wired for sound. So John was like, just let's not even talk about it in here. And he chilled out with us for like half an hour, got a real determined look on his face, and walked out because I, again, didn't know everything that was going on. But John came in and just sat down and cooled off, and we continued our conversation over him, Kevin, myself, and Harrison. And then John, like, it looked
For
like he took a half
situations,
an hour.
for
What was
situations
that?
like for situations like that, when I was young, I learned Pig Latin so that I could communicate in pig.
Talk. Nice. But we talked about something else. We talked about advocacy and stuff like that instead, because there's nothing to do about the situation there now.
Always
But
right,
John is,
exactly. It's like speculate and worry, but yeah, get the work done while you're there.
Mhm. Yeah, just get the work done while we're there. Leave us alone. It'll serve. Whatever it is going to work out. But John, I think, needed, some space to get his head together. Now, we had the elite panel go up. Now, the governor, Johnny B, and damn, I keep forgetting the other guy's name. They were supposed to do an hour on stage with a fireside chat on censorship and the Second Amendment. So, of course, since they were trespassed out the building, yeah, the guy from Legally Armed America. Since they were trespassed out the building, that hour was open, so they just pushed it forward and kicked off the elite panel at 4. I mean, excuse me, at 3. So you had everyone up on stage, and I was taking pictures for Ashley. Everyone introduced themselves. They asked the first question, and people answered it. And then John looks over and goes, "You know who should be up on stage? Tony Simon should be up on stage. Tony, come up on stage." Now, I wasn't listening. I mean, I was there beside the speaker, but I couldn't hear clearly. So I was taking pictures of Ashley, and I hear my name, and I look up, and John's looking dead in my face. And I'm like, "What?" He was like, "Yes, you come up on stage, grab a mic." So that's how I ended up on stage at GunCon as part of the elite panel. which was a total surprise to me. I got voluntold to get up there, and I looked at it as an opportunity to speak to a new audience about us. So if you want to check it out, you can watch, his coverage of GunCon. You can, watch me live, uh, get shanghaied on stage and try to make myself memorable without trying to take over an event. You know what I mean? Trying not to look like I'm trying to make it about me, but I definitely wanted to make it about our work. So I got to be up on stage. We did the hour and then came down, and I had to wait for 6 o'clock, 5:30. So it was from 4 to 5:30. I walked around and did some stuff and waited for Clover and I to do the interview. And then Clover came in and announced that he was doing a playing card, kind of like baseball playing cards, trading cards, with 15 of the content creators, some of them from the panel and others that were at GunCon. And he made kind of playing cards of them and had them sign it. And he had the prototype there. And he had me read off everybody's name that was there. And again, it was people I was just on the panel with, 7 of them. And then other people, of course, I know and met there. And he goes, "Yep, this is the one. We're auctioning them all off, and we're starting with this from the prototype. And all the funds from this particular deck is going to you, and the second is for everyone." So he surprised me on air with that announcement, which was really cool. And the fact that nobody in those cards said anything to me all weekend about it. And they had 3 days to slip up, and no one did. So I was pretty impressed by that. So that's what happened. And then we left, at the end of the day, and started a trip back to Jersey. Now, what really happened during that time that I didn't know, um, the Twist Drill building is owned by a group of people that are very left leaning. They have fashion shows that rent their space out there, photography studios, stuff like that. And I guess because of the politics of the attorney general, he came out with some legislation these people didn't like. And instead of just being forthcoming and honest with it, I feel they ambushed John and used him to get the guy there to make a political statement on the back of GunCon. One, they knew what John was doing. They knew the guests there. And they knew who the guests were going to be months ahead of time. If not months, definitely weeks ahead of time, more than a month ahead of time. That was printed. It was on everything. They knew about it. They also knew how many tickets John was going to sell because their capacity was the limit of tickets John could sell. So he got the capacity numbers from them for the venue. That's the number of tickets he made sure he sold. So they called we believe, okay, I believe they call the fire marshal on John. I believe they sabotaged the air conditioning system. They waited until 12:30. They waited till 12:30 to send the email saying that those people were banned from the place. So 8 hours before they were to show up, they sent an email saying they couldn't be there. So I believe they actively tried to sabotage GunCon, and they didn't care because they had a clause in the contract that says they could turn down whomever they wanted at the venue. So they just waited because they felt they were covered by it. But again, they had weeks to do that. They waited until after. There was not enough time if people were coming just to see the Attorney General and Johnny B. What, after they show up in Cleveland, what are they supposed to do if the people they came to see aren't there? And then when they had the fire marshal come and go, "Oh no, this is over capacity," then they lied about the capacity. So I feel they violated their contract. Hopefully he can get his pound of flesh from them, but it was really political and kind of jacked up. Then the fire marshal went after the food trucks and they checked all their certifications. So I don't know if it was just the fire marshal or it was a health inspector, but one of the food trucks had to leave. One or two had to leave because one had too much propane on their vehicle. If you're going to be somewhere all day and supposedly 2,000 people are going to be there, you probably are smart enough to bring extra propane that was going to be used up within that few hours. But yep. So they pulled them, and also they doubled the number of police officers John had to hire for security. from 2 to 4. And John had to pay for that or not be able to do the event. So I believe the city of Cleveland or some officials in Cleveland were in on it, and they tried to sabotage GunCon.
Hmm. Well, I wasn't there,
And then
so we'll
and
see.
then after it kicks off, well, there's a lot of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of coincidences. Police show up, you have to double your security. You were lied to about how many people could be in the building, and then a fire marshal shows up 10 minutes after it starts. Uh, they trespass some of your guests. It's just way too much happened for it to just be coincidence for something that again was advertised well ahead of time.
Well, did you hear why they, whatever, told those people they can't go in there?
Yeah, they said there was overcapacity, so they couldn't go. Oh wait, which people? The attorney
No.
general?
Yeah, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
specific people that they trespassed. So that gets into
So
the whole
the
concept of like keeping Second Amendment stuff single focused or not.
separate. Yep. That's one of the reasons I do keep it separately because I think they were targeted because they said it's transphobic. It's not, in my opinion, it's not transphobic. They just had some stuff that said if you're under 18, they shouldn't be able to give children hormones to change their gender. I mean, that's what he passed in his state. What are you doing in Ohio about it? That would it was ridiculous. It was a political move. Um, cool, you have the ability to do that in your contract, but the way you did it was really just to get back at John because you could have canceled the attorney general at any time. You waited until not even the ninth hour, the 12th hour. The die was cast. You couldn't take it back. So it was really silly. That's not how you make, in my opinion, they won nothing. What they lost was more because then, sad part is there's some people who according to the comment section. They were like, "Oh, everybody should have left." And I was reading some of the comments, and some of the stupidest people on earth know how to use computers. Um, how do you walk out? Well, what do you do? Just John packs up everything and just walks out the door, and just people show up going, "Wait a minute, wasn't something here this weekend? Why is the building empty? Why is everybody walking around in a circle?" No, you don't end it. You can't end it. Um, someone else went, "You should have found another venue." Another idiot said, "You should have just had one in the park that was down the street." I'm like, okay. Hey, there's a bunch of people with guns laid out on tables at the park, and there's thousands of people just roaming around. That call would have went out. So some of the stupidest comments I ever saw were in the comments section of John's video or various videos trying to explain what happened. Um, I think it's unfortunate that they brought other politics in that had nothing to do with the Second Amendment because they were trying to shut someone down. The irony of the fact that he was speaking on censorship didn't really go past without me noticing. It's like, wow, how ironic. They didn't want him to be heard, so they trespassed him off the building and tried to end the event that he was at. So that was the drama that happened, as far as I know, from me watching videos and, my total ignorance about what was happening. Not total ignorance, but I didn't know enough about what was happening until after I watched other people's videos after it was over with.
Yeah, I mean the list of lessons to be learned from this are is long, right? It would be a list with a lot of sections in it because there's so many ways to take stuff from this. I think one
Hmm.
of the big, like, the 1,000 foot view ones is Cleveland question mark. Is it worth doing anything in Cleveland ever again? Venue specific or not, going to Cleveland, travel, uh, options for places to stay, things to do, aside from the drama, if you were just there. Like I went to Charleston for NRA show one time, and I don't know if I
Hmm.
recommend it because there's like 17 things to do in Charleston. And if you don't want to go to a bar with beer and stuff, like, then there's only like seven things to do. So, like, most of the stuff is just downtown bars and restaurants. So, it wasn't like all that fun of a place to go from my experience. I'm wondering, just as things go, Cleveland, with like, is it worth hosting things in Cleveland ever again?
Uh, Okay, I don't what John I do what John does on a very small level, right? Like I do what John does on a very small level. And I wouldn't host somewhere that I couldn't trust. And Cleveland has proved you can't when you had the police force you, or I mean pretty much blackmail you into doubling your security budget the day of the event. I'd never go back there again because you have no fallback. Like, all right, next time they're going to make you bring six, but they're only going to tell you need three or four. You know what I mean? So they can't be trusted. The fire marshal came out. My thing is, no, the city of Cleveland has, and this is just my opinion, obviously. I wouldn't trust them. I heard rumor, and I kind of like what it said. Let's have in the same town GOA is having their stuff. Goals has having down in Knoxville, Tennessee. You because one of the things that holds John back is the fact that he wants people to be able to carry in the venue. Where we have the event in Knoxville, they're able to carry in the venue. Uh, we're going to see what kind of range they have next year because, I mean, this year because I'm speaking there, so I'll be at the range day also. And if they have a decent range and they have the venue, I think that should open up as a place that John can actually host the event uh, in Knoxville. And it's big enough to be able to have it and not be crowded and have people on the floor. So hopefully that's where he'll hold it next year. And it'll be good enough because there are lots of restaurants. It's a college town. So there's restaurants and places to go. They got hotels right beside the venue, plus Airbnbs through the town. So I feel maybe Knoxville would be a better fit. And it's got an airport right there in Knoxville.
I mean, I don't know much about Cleveland. It's just that from paying attention to what I do pay attention to, it doesn't come up on my radar very often. It's kind of
Mm.
curious. And I think I've been there. Is that the one in northern Ohio?
Yes,
Well,
it's the one right on the lake.
okay, yeah, I think I've only driven through it then. Oh, did you drive there or you flew there?
I drove, excuse me, my Angelo drove. I got to enjoy sitting in the passenger seat for the first time in a long time.
Oh, so then did you drive past that nuclear place? This nuclear
Don't,
energy place? Whatever they call it, nuclear reactor.
not that I'm aware of.
Oh yeah, if it's the one I'm thinking of, you would have drove. It's the closest I've ever been to one. Like the road goes right next to it. I've never been closer to one in my life. Anyway,
Oh,
that's
yeah, no,
so.
we got them in Jersey. We got one down in Jersey. So,
Oh, okay.
um,
I've only ever seen
yeah,
them
we
like
were.
way off on the horizon, almost from like the highway. I mean, I've never driven over to one to see how close I can get, but for whatever
Mhm.
reason, the highway in Ohio, I remember this from like the one time I drove past it. I was like driving up, and I'm like, oh, there's a nuclear reactor about on the horizon where I normally see them. I'm like, wow, that thing's getting close. Like I've never been this close before. Before I knew it, I mean, I could have thrown a rock at it and hit the concrete part. Like I've never been that close to one before.
I'm surprised they allowed somebody that close to one because the nuclear something something commission. I was
This was
actually
a few
looking to
years
be one
ago,
of
but
those
yeah, this
guards.
was this was just on the highway, so it wasn't like I was off. I was just driving from Ohio to DC. I think.
Yeah, I was actually looking at being a guard at one of those when I got out the Corps. Um, yeah, so that was the craziness that was there, and I think it was just jacked up, but it definitely reinforced for me why you try to keep Second Amendment away from other things, uh, because a lot of people are political and they're petty, and they just make ignorant calls like that. Because truthfully, the Twist Drill Building now has a rating of a 1 star on everything because people went, how can you trust them to host an event there just in case your politics don't agree with theirs, they'll sabotage you.
That's a good point because there's one thing to say like they won't help you, they won't lift a finger if they don't like your whatever, but
Mhm.
to go on the other end and try to shut you down while they hosted you, that's more than
Yeah.
just a sucker punch, right? Like that's messed up.
And also, and let's be real, there were people there, like John said, the panelist had Between them, millions of subscribers or followers, millions of subscribers or followers. There are people that were willing to take up a weekend to come up to see these people live, and then you tried to do everything you did to shut it out. So you pissed fans off. Now, most people who are fans of, these guys are normal people, but understand there are also crazy people out there that are fans and will be so offended for you that they would try to hurt someone that did something to you. I'm not saying it'll happen, but understand, Selena didn't get killed by a stranger. She got killed by the president of her fan club. Some people have no emotional control, and they could do horrible things. So what if somebody got a wild hair up their butt and decided that that building didn't need to be there anymore because they sabotaged GunCon or they couldn't see their favorite YouTuber? You never know. I'm just saying, you ticked off a crap ton of people for very little win. If you're not in the gun community, you didn't know anything about GunCon. All right. So when they pulled a political move about shutting down an attorney general, they brought more attention to the than would have been paid attention to the situation if you'd have just let it happen.
Like they
No
would
one
have
in the
had
fashion.
so yeah, they like the not like the anti-gun
Yeah,
side is so influential that they'd say they let this event happen unscathed, therefore we're never going to hold an event in the Twist building again.
yeah. I mean, like, who did you think was going to say that? One, they'd have to find out that it was even held there. And again, the guy spoke was due to answer questions for an hour at the event. It wasn't hosted in the honor of him, anything like that. But he was like someone there to speak on censorship, and he was there to speak for an hour. So the loss they're seeing right now, they're like deleting comments off Google, and it's not helping because all you have to do is come on air and go, "Hey, the Twist building guys freaking changed the Google again. Hit them up. Just go in there and crush them again." And that's all it takes is a phone call. They have to pay somebody to erase all that stuff.
Now, they probably didn't realize this whenever they did all this, but because they did this and Clover was there, he's going to tell his audience. And I suspect not one person in Clover's audience is going to ever rent the Twist building in Cleveland now because
Well, see, my thing is not the people that are rent the Twist building, is the people that will put that in every review, everything. It will be mentioned. I mean, there's still people angry at Bill Ruger for his stance on the Second Amendment and firearms in 30 round magazines. And he's been dead for 3 decades, maybe more.
and that was contrary to other things he said. So it wasn't like his only stance ever. That's just the one that
Hmm.
remembered because it happened kind of during the internet. And we have very selective memory. We like to remember certain things when we can. We like to remember the news, the flashy things, right? The news headlines. Um, we have a real question from Mark out there, but what thought? Am I missing something? I thought we had another one that was
I
more.
just got one
Go ahead.
about ARs. Is that the one?
Well, yeah, I mean that's a real question. I was going to say I thought there was another one about the event, but yeah, let's go to Huck's question then. So, gun question: If you and this from Ghost Town, I think he's still in Michigan. Did he say he's still in Michigan? If you only had a budget AR pistol, Anderson or PSA, and 300 blackout, what would you stock up on to keep it running as long as possible? What wears out the most on cheap ARs? I don't think that there's a difference between a cheap AR and an expensive AR on what wears out the most. Um, so, in other words, I think it's the same perishable parts on both. I think,
Hmm.
in my opinion, this is what I always say. Nobody likes to hear it. ARs are like apples from an orchard. So if you think about apples from an orchard, there's a bunch of trees producing apples, right? So there's a bunch of machines producing parts in a factory. So those machines can produce parts with a couple of variables, right? Like the material going in. So you can put in really good stuff and you get really good stuff out, or you could put in inexpensive aluminum and you're going to get inexpensive parts out. Why? Because really good aluminum might be extruded at a high temperature and pressure so that there's no air bubbles and there's a really good, whatever they call the striations or the grain in the aluminum or whatever that's called when you're talking about extruding aluminum into a, a piece of stock that gets whittled down into a receiver. Or you could have the shit ends of like the beginning and the end run of that aluminum pour. And now you push that stuff out under much less pressure and much less heat. So you essentially get like a foamy, bubbly piece of aluminum that comes out. And that's a shittier piece of aluminum than that really strong aircraft quality aluminum that came out in the middle of the run. So just like an apple orchard, you got the same tree can kick out a perfect apple that you're going to give your teacher if you're trying to get a good grade. And then it can also kick out an apple that doesn't have worms in it, but it doesn't look good. It looks all like a butt or something, and nobody's going to want to buy that at the store. But it'll make great applesauce. You chop it up, it'll make a great bag of apples, sliced apples. It'll make a great apple pie. So there's nothing wrong with the apple, but doesn't look good. And that's the same thing as AR. So people can go, my AR comes from the same place as the good AR. No shit, because all ARs ain't the same. So there's all these different things that, and I tried to explain, like, you push in the aluminum through an extruder under temperature and pressure, and that's either done extremely precisely, or that's done quickly. And, let's just get it done. And those two aluminums have a different cost, and those two aluminums are different to machine. So, a strong aluminum that's extruded under high pressure and temperature, it's going to be very difficult to machine, and it's going to break bits all the time, and it's going to need, you're going to be worried about it, watching it all the time. The shitty aluminum is like butter, and you can have any old part, tool running through it. So that's the difference between a budget AR and a good AR, in my opinion. And it doesn't matter the brand because they all have that same situation. So the best brands have the best materials, they have the most precise machining, and then they do the most quality assurance. They do the most quality testing, sometimes even testing every single part, with x-ray machines and magnetic particles and pressures and all kinds of cool stuff. Others will test 1 out of 10, which is unheard of. Most of them will test like 1 out of 50, which is more often the case. Some of them will, one in a batch. They just make sure that they actually, the machine didn't fall apart during the manufacture of these 100, and that's good enough. And that's how you get a budget AR. So somebody can fight me on that, but that's the difference between ARs. So if you're talking like what's going to break on an AR, like the part itself, like the AR receiver itself might break on a cheap one because it's got a bunch of air bubbles in it, because the shit's, it's not extruded the same, because they weren't paying attention to it the same. But is it going to? No. Can it? Yes. Can a high quality one break? Of course, anything can break. Will it break? Maybe, but probably not, because it's built to a spec that's way past anything that even the military pays for. It's like, it's like a race car spec. So it's like aircraft, aircraft quality, race car quality. You start talking about that quality aluminum. Can it break? I guess. Like, can you really stress it out? Probably. But that machine's probably going to break less often. But where is it going to break? At the same places that the other one's going to break, and the places that are designed to break, the springs, the rings, right, the perishable parts, and then, occasionally a problem with the material. So I don't think that a budget, I guess big long explanation, I don't think a budget is going to break anymore, but it certainly can break. And if it can break, get yourself 2 or 3 receivers. It doesn't cost nothing. We're talking about $30 receivers. So get yourself a couple of receivers so that you have them in case like the worst case scenario is like the piece around a pin breaks, right? Like, so now the pin will never go back in right, and now the trigger doesn't work, or maybe some other part of it does, flops around. So otherwise, then it's just your extractor, your key, your gas key. What else? Your rings, I guess. Maybe does people really ever have to replace
Mm-hmm.
rings? Firing
Yep.
pin. Have a couple of those.
Gas rings,
Most
frying pan.
and hardly ever for wearing down, mostly for, again, like a material failure. So a break from a manufacturing defect is what you got to worry about. I don't know. Was that too much? I haven't ranted about ARs in a while.
Well, my whole problem is, okay, when you get AR-15s, don't go for the cheapest piece of shit you can find, because you start getting things like 6061 aluminum. All right. Don't get that. Get the next step up. Um, you want the most bang for your buck when you get an AR. The parts that wear out, like you said, are the same. So it's a gas ring, bolt carrier group. Some of the springs inside the trigger housing, or you're going to lose some springs. They got kits that have all this, and they got channels that can actually talk about specifics. But Brownells has a good take on it and good video out there because I look at stuff like that and I go, what are the spare parts I need for these guns that I'm running for diversity shoots to get a lot of rounds for? Get the mil spec AR. Now, I got mine from PSA, my very first one. I got the mil spec upper without the bolt carrier group and without a charging handle. Guess what? I didn't need a bolt carrier group or charging handle because I got a decent barrel and a freaking upper and a handguard. All right, cool. What next? I went and found a quality bolt carrier group and I picked up a gunfighter friggin' charging handle from BCM because I know that was decent and would hold up to a lot of use. I got a bolt carrier group that was on sale also. Always buy crap on sale. All right. And never buy anything that's brand new that hasn't been put through the ringer or used for years. I'm sorry, as somebody that hosts an event talking about new stuff, new stuff is great for other people to buy, not me to buy. All right. I want stuff that's already have a track record of it working. So that's what I do. Replace the parts, get spare parts, get a spare bolt carrier group, get a spare bolt, get a spare firing pin. You might want some, trigger springs and stuff like that. If they break, all this stuff is really inexpensive. Some of it comes in kits. Some of it you can just order individually when you get something to throw it in to, get 10 or 20% off if you spend over X amount of dollars. That's a way to start building up on stuff too. So get some extra springs here and there. High Point again has their mil spec AR and it's going to be $500. Check out every part of it. Things are tested with them, high pressure tested. Only buy stuff that's been checked out. Don't go for the cheapest because you'll pay for it later if it breaks. If you're worried about, poop hits the fan or actually having a more than one, gun for an emergency situation because a lot of people don't think about that. They want to max out their one general purpose gun, but if they actually have to use it, well, now the police have your general purpose gun. What's your other gun? Like, what do you use? Because they took that one. So my suggestion is, of course, you have more than one firearm. You don't have to trick it out with the latest everything, um, and just have more than one because I want one. I want my wife to have one if something goes down, and I definitely need a backup. So when people say, why do you need an AR? I totally agree with them. You need at least three. But yeah, uh, those parts are the ones that wear, but don't go for the cheapest, least expensive AR. Go for the best bang for the buck AR. So that means you don't have to buy a $350, you know, BC Bear Creek Arsenal, but you can get the $500 other thing that has the good barrel, that has the good bolt, or even do them separately because I was just looking at the price of this stuff over at PSA right now. They sell a whole bunch of uppers for less than $300 that you can get an upper with no bolt carrier group. Then you can go somewhere like Walker Defense and pick up a really good bolt carrier group. And if you get one of their blems, you have a really, really good carrier group, bolt carrier group for half the price of what you would get charged from them. And it'll have like a slick coating on that makes lubrication easier and cleanup quicker. And I die on that hill, man. Get a complete lower from somebody. Again, make sure it's not the cheapest thing you can get, but get a complete lower. Wait for something like this holiday to catch them on sale, and then purchase your upper separately right off the bat. You're saving 11% by not buying a completed firearm, and then whatever's on sale, and you can mix and match. Now, understand when you do get quality upper, get a quality bolt carrier group, and that will knock down the chances of something not fitting or not syncing up because that could happen. You can have tolerance stacking, but the better the quality and the closer you are to mil spec, the less likely that will happen.
All right, so I asked the question because you kind of brought it up in the middle of your stuff that you're just saying. I'm gonna ask a question. How many ARs is it reasonable to have? And New York Outcast said, reasonable is subjective, but that's why I used it
Hmm.
because I don't want to say how many should you have because somebody who's by
Hmm.
themselves is different than somebody with two kids and a wife and a father-in-law that lives in the house, or somebody that has a situation where they live in a trailer and their neighbor is family or close friend, and they have three of them so that family can have kids in the house or something. You know what I mean? Like, so there's all kinds of situations. So just kind of curious. It's not like there's a correct answer, but just because we have so many people, we have a ton of people, and I'm trying to encourage people on X to actually use the interactive nature of the internet. You can comment on X, and there's a ton of people watching on X right now because we're listening on X. I guess they're not saying anything, but anyway, I just was curious about that because I'll just riff on that for a second. I don't think there's anything wrong with having. I mean, everyone should have, as a citizen, like whatever, as a responsible adult, as someone who's paranoid or not, like just you should have an AR. Period. Like, there's nothing wrong with that gun. It's the most common gun in the country. So, I mean, if it was a million years ago, I would have said you should have a 30-30 lever action just because everybody else does, and it just is foolish to not have the most common thing. So, having the most common thing is the way to go. If you're just going to have one, I'm on the side. I am on team buy a good one. But I'm
Hmm.
also on team buy as many as you want. So once you got your good one, and here's why you should have your good one, because you have to fuck fight with it, maybe, right? I'm not saying you will have
Hmm.
to, in case you ever have to, or if maybe you ever really have to, for whatever, yourself, your family, for your community, for your country, have a good one. That being said, then have another one. So, like Tony would say, if you got to give it to somebody, right? Like, what you call it, the brother-in-law one.
Yeah, the
I
brother-in-law gun. Yeah.
There's so many variations on. Oh, you need to borrow one. I mean, there's just so many variations. So have another one that's decent. Have another one that you can play with, or 22, or maybe it's a stupid shotgun one or something like that. You're gonna, but it's another one, and now you have, because somewhere in there you bought an extra stock or you got something or whatever. So there's always nice to have three, just so you have that one that can be sort of like the coat hanger for all the stuff that you don't really care about because it's only on my 22 or it's only on my shotgun one or whatever. Or maybe you get one that's shorter, longer. Like, some people like to shoot long range, right? So they want a 20 plus inch something, or a long handguard maybe, or they want to put a bipod on it. So you have that one, right? Because that's not the one you're going to go do stuff with. And then keep going, because they cost 35 freaking dollars for the frame for the thing or the receiver for the thing, and all those parts cost so little. And it's like buying. It's like if you have a truck and like your tires go bad, you never have to buy new tires because so many people buy trucks and immediately put bigger tires on it, that there's always this supply of like stock truck tires, right? So there's always this supply of stock AR parts wherever you are, like gun show, gun shop, friend's house, like anywhere, like online, whatever. Like, there's always some kind of sale on whatever the stock stuff was, because that was just put on it to sell the part, right? So anyway, I think reasonable could be 6 to 10 or something. Like, they're not expensive guns. They're almost the least expensive guns to put together. Or am I crazy? Because you
Yeah, I
can
mean,
part them or dollar
because the
cost.
number exactly. There's so many of them being made. I mean, they're right in line with Glock parts when it comes down to it. My suggestion: um, get a couple of different ARs. Get a couple of different ones, even if you're alone. Get a sling. Get a light. Iron sights are fine, but you can get a decent optic for a lot less than a few years ago. A few years ago, the rule of thumb was pay as much for the optic as you did for the firearm. Now that's not even close to being true. The quality of lights have gone up for weapons mounted light. So, truthfully, where I would go would be Streamlight because it's not so expensive as to be unattainable. You know what I mean? Is I'm not saving up for a cloud defensive light for a few $100s when I could get a really good stream light with a lifetime warranty for less than 200 for everything and a little over 100 for something with no cables. That's what I have on my stuff. And also, I think another one that slides in that category of a good weapons mounted light, nightstick. I've had it mounted on my firearms for a really long time. And again, they're sub $100 for like 1,000 lumen light. Um, Good light, good sling. Iron sights are fine until you can afford the optic that you want. Good optics are now available from or Holosun, even Gideon Optics, which people go, oh, but that's. I'm like, you can get yourself a very good uh, optic for around $300. So for I'll go ahead and throw it out. Maybe a $800 to $1,000 budget, you can get a solid AR with good parts. If you picked up the lower and the upper separately, you and throw in a BCG that you can catch on sale, right, from one of these manufacturers. So a lower for less than $200, an upper for about $200. A BCG and a good charging handle and a flashlight, probably between about $300 for all of those, and smack them together with a decent sling at around $50, and you have a rifle that you just need to clean, oil, take to the range, and run it. And you can do that a couple of times. You can do that once a year without stressing yourself out financially for most people.
Buy one of those twice a year.
Yeah, once a year, you can put one of those rifles together if that's your goal. You know what I mean? If you set aside and go, look, I want to make sure I have at least two solid basic rifles that work and I run them and I can take some classes. I know how to run these guns and I know they're made with good parts and I put enough rounds through them that I'm comfortable with it. Because that's also something. Just buying it, smack it together, stick it in the corner and assuming it's running is a bad move. So put some rounds through it, shoot the thing. And again, it can be a longer term thing. It doesn't have to be something you buy a rifle every year. It could be every other year. But just set the money aside, wait for holiday sales or other sales, and just take advantage of them. Create your own little, what do you call it thing? Email account, just so you can sign up on these sites for newsletters and you put it in for the little stupid contest where they sell your information and then just hit you up with all kinds of email stuff. But just set aside an email just for that, so you know when sales come up and it fits your overall goal of getting a piece here, getting a piece there over time. So it's not straining you financially to actually get quality products at a discount. And stick with stuff that's already known quantity, not the new company, yada yada, because that's kind of setting yourself up.
Yeah, I would also throw out used, I guess sales, but used. So people, again, they own something, they don't like it, they want to move to the next one, or maybe a company like Magpul when they were going through their variations on stocks or rails or something. So this is the new hotness, but next year there's a new hotness, and last year's hotness ain't so hot. So, you buy that stuff for pennies on the dollar, and you're getting a lighter weight, better materials, designed the way you want, just last year's model instead of this year's model. And same thing with lights and everything else, pretty much. There's a lot of that opportunity through, eBay or whatever the equivalent of eBay is, or the Facebook Marketplace, or just hanging out with people and asking them, or hearing like, I'm dissatisfied with this brace or whatever. Oh snap! Well, go buy the new one, and I'll give you, half price for that old one. And then boom, you got your whatever upgrade. You got your part for your build, at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just I mean, it's something I preach about on my on every podcast I'm on. Buying new. Oh, and I'm an iron sights dude. You know what I mean? I'm a fixed front sight post. If you can have a fixed rear sight, cool. If you have a flip up, cool. My whole thing is to have that thing out of the box ready to go and not dependent on getting an optic.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I
like
mean? It's like,
the other side of it is it fail. Your gun is going to fail down to whatever it's going to fail down to. So why are you
mhm.
buying this thing, for like the fight or for the future? So if it's for the actual like fight that might happen, maybe you live in a circumstance where that's actually a thing. You're defending your boat or your home in the wilderness or some shit. So like it's really a thing. Or you're worried about the future and disruptions or whatever. Either case, you need that gun to work no matter what, and you need that gun to work because there's no gun shop to go to in the in a dire future,
Uh-huh.
right? So better
And
parts.
and truthfully,
Yeah,
the Avid, I think it's real Avid, is a gun. They make tools for AR-15s. You can buy a basic toolkit for an AR, watch some videos, and actually learn almost every part of the AR yourself. You can change out with tools because they're so prevalent. If you really want that thing, you know what I mean? If you really go, okay, AR-15 is going to be my poop hits the fan firearm, I think AR is the way to go because the parts are easily swapped out with by regular people. You know what they do, and if you learn how to use it, it's a relatively simple gun. I mean, you know what I'm, in my opinion. Uh, you can put it together. There's a lot of channels on what's it? American Gun School? Yeah. Or is one of
AGI,
the
American Gunsmithing Institute, AGI. They were the
no, no, no.
originators.
No, 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 no. I mean, the YouTube channel. The guy has it. He's a gunsmith, and he checks out and measures AR parts and does stuff like that. He has a lot of information there, and I mean, I'll throw my boy Zeke uh, from Modern Gun School. You can sign up with them and learn a whole lot, but a lot of this stuff you can learn online and do yourself from quality YouTube videos about your AR.
Yeah, ARs are more of an armor type of thing than a gunsmith type of thing. When you think of like some
Yep.
of the iterations of guns, those first guns were like flintlocks and matchlocks and stuff. Up until a certain point, each one of those was built, lock, stock, and barrel by a gunsmith and an artisan. So they were similar
Oh.
because they're using, fixtures and techniques, but they're necessarily they didn't have interchangeable parts. In fact, guns need
Hmm.
the need or the appreciation of interchangeable parts for firearms, which was created by Eli Whitney and Colt, really. But they don't like to
Yep.
give Colt credit for it. They give Eli Whitney because he doesn't come up as a gun guy in the schools. But because of guns, interchangeable parts happened. And Colt being able to demonstrate that he could take 6 of his revolvers apart, put them into a pillowcase, just put dump all these random parts back out on a desk and have people quickly assemble 6 working revolvers out of just random parts. That impressed people enough to start buying his fucking guns and change guns and technology from that point on. Like that's how we got the Industrial Revolution. Once people figured out, oh, interchangeable parts are more than just guns. But anyway, yeah, that's
Oh, by
the
the way,
innovation level since then. Go ahead.
School of the American Rifle. Oh, thanks, Guns and Water. I went and looked him up, and then realized I thought I was subbed to him, and I'm not. So I just subscribed to his channel. But School of the American Rifle has a lot of this stuff on, and it depends on how much of a deep dive you want to go. But
Well, I guess
I
what I was
think
getting
it's
into
important.
is that the gun evolution itself as a machine has gotten to where
Yeah.
we've become less and less dependent on the mechanic, the artisan, to understand how to, like the magician, to understand how to work this mechanism, like maybe an old uh, locomotive engineer or something. You might think of like, understanding the mystery of this massive machine that very few people understand how it works, and then he knows how to run it, how to fix it. Guns aren't like that anymore. They used to be where you had to have extensive knowledge on how files work and how to not remove too much material so you don't ruin something, because then you have to know how to add material to a gun part, and that's even worse. So, there's very little of that gunsmithing necessary, or excuse me, yeah, gunsmithing necessary. It's mostly armor work necessary in an AR. So you mix that concept of the AR, which is one of the reasons the ARs are so popular. You mix that element of the AR with the internet and the dissemination of so much information that's related to the AR. From like Foss says here, building your own AR helps you understand how to use it or build it or work how it works. So many people took that to heart, and because of the the inexpensive nature of it, there's people that have dozens, which isn't uncommon. If you've got the discretionary income for maybe $300 or $400 for a while, there is all it costs to get a basic AR going, and then depending on what
Hmm.
to dress it up with, like you say, like well under 1,000, a lot of times even under 600 or something. Anyway, so
Hmm.
just saying, like I think that you're right 100% that there's no barrier to entry with an AR. People have shared and continue to share information as it develops, but the thing is, okay, everything we're talking about 556, right? Now flip it to, well, one of the questions was about 300 blackout, right? But now
We're in a
flip it to
blackout.
308, and now 308 comes into a branch in the family in the tree, right? But if you get into some of these calibers, you don't even have to hardly branch. 300 blackout's a pretty, it's a tough to even consider that a branch because so many of the parts are still compatible, and you get
Hmm.
into so many calibers from 22 literally up to 50. So it's and shotguns. So it's just it's hard to put down an AR other than it almost has lost any unique. Well, you could say it lost all uniqueness, but then if you really want to be a purist, you can still follow all the pure Colt strains or whatever you call them.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the, and also, and I'll go with this. Some people won't agree with it, but everybody can't be correct. Um, Glock. A Glock is another one that, again, there's so many parts. It's been out so long. Taking the Glock armorer's course isn't that much of a big deal. It takes one tool to take the dang thing apart. And if you keep it close to factory, you have a good gun. People want to add all kinds of stuff to it, but I'm just going, you got a gun with like 34 or 36 parts that are really common. The known parts that break on them, you know what it is. It doesn't cost a lot of money. They're on sale all the time. The used ones and police trade-in ones are sub $300 for the 40 cals, which is a barrel swap and an extractor away from 9 millimeter. You'd be crazy not to get that if you're one of those people that go, yeah, I want, two or three solid handguns without a lot of bells and whistles that'll work. And if you want to add bells and whistles to a Glock, you can. I personally feel that there's not really much you need to add. People keep talking about changing the sights out because they break. I'm like, who the hell are these people? Because I've broken everything I've ever touched and I didn't break lock sights. The plastic lock sights, I've racked them off my pants. I've racked them off a table. Now, if you're going to slam them into a table like it's a freaking controlled crash, like they're, what do you call it? Crash test dummies? Well, then you're an idiot not taking into account the just two pieces of plastic on top of your gun. Calm down, chief.
Yeah, like kind of
But
wedged into a dovetail, so it's not like they're even in there mechanically all that strong. But I have
but
seen them
here's the
break. I
crazy
get what
thing.
you're saying. They're durable more than people give them credit for, and most of that is
Yeah.
from the original internet. I mean, not that whole deal about like you just said they might break. The plastic sites might break is the
Uh-huh.
original freaking internet 101. Like the original internet was complaining about that because they're plastic and they're goofy compared to a lot of the smooth or melted or gutter or channel sites that exist before that. But time on the clock, all these decades later, it's not even. It shows you who's actually paying attention or not to what's happening versus what seems right because it keeps getting whatever permeated. But after working in a shop, they do break. Like the front sights come off all the time and the back sights come off all the time. But it's the same kind of thing where the person who's going to lose those sights is going to also be abusive to their other sites because of the way they sit or the way that they put it in and out of their holster. Everybody's different, and it's just so I'm just not going to say like they never break, but I do agree they're super rugged. Like I've personally
Yeah.
had to do some real heinous shit to make them break.
And truthfully, I mean, the the metal version of Glock sights, like just the metal version of those sights. Last time I checked, because having this discussion and what sights you should, they were $16. Like the metal replacement sights for Glock sights. So they're Glock sights, but they're just metal. They were like $16 from Brownells. This was years ago. I haven't checked again. But I'm like, they're cheaper than almost any metal sights you can get, and they're a one for one swap. And what I would do would I'd get the metal rear sight, metal front sight, flip the rear sight around so I'm not looking at the little white cutout cup. Because that's what my FFL did for me when I first got my Glock. And I told him I was going to use it to help introduce people to firearms. He was like, "Yeah, that's annoying. That little white cup really confuses a lot of people." He just pulled the rear sight, flipped it 180 degrees, and pushed it back in. He was
That's a
like,
great
"That plain black rear sight works."
that's a great point. That's another reason people swap out the stock plastic ones is because they don't like that weird cup and ball. I didn't mind it, but I understood it was different, therefore goofy and not necessary. Like I don't
Hmm.
mind different, but I'm not looking for different, and it annoys me to some extent. Like a normal, like you say, what post and pocket or whatever they call it, like a normal notch and post type of
Notch
sight.
and post, yeah.
Put some high vis shit on there. You're not going to impress me. I don't like it. You put some glow in the dark shit on there. I'm okay with that because it's glow in the dark. At least it's going to be there. I kind of like the ones where it's just a dot on the bottom of the notch. But anyway, now getting into all the sites out there. I hear you. Though a lot of people
Yeah.
are they don't like the Glock sight, so they get rid of it. And here's the thing: this is not the only company that does this. This happens in a lot of companies with a lot of products, like just a ton of products, where they know you're going to modify something to make it because that's your interface with it, like a grip or like a trigger or like a sight, especially on guns, right? Like think about most bolt actions just give you a fucking rail because they don't know what optic you want. Otherwise, they would know exactly what optic you want. And they put it on there and sell it to you cheaper, right? They put an optic rail on there because they don't know what you're going to do. So with Glocks and a lot of other guns, they just put the most basic cheap sight they could possibly put on there because they know, I don't even know what the number is, 80, 90% of people are taking it right off immediately. I mean, they don't even leave the store sometimes, like, right, with the stock sites,
Hmm.
and they know they're just going into a big bucket. So they try to do them as inexpensively as possible. So there's that factor to it that it's like good enough, but barely good enough. Like it's just good enough, we should say. But that being said, we're talking a lot about Glock sights.
Yep.
Gunswater said the Glock Armory courses are only open to LEO. So when I took them, I haven't taken a Glock Armor's course in forever, but I did. They last for like 5 years. So I took one and then I took another one. So I had them for like 10 years. I was Glock certified. And I took both of mine with Dennis Tooler from the Tooler drill. And that's one of the reasons I did it because the first time we went and took the class with Dennis Tooler, and I was like, what the hell, that you can do that? And then the second time, I made sure I did it with Dennis again. Anyway, when I did it, and this again years ago, and I'm assuming it's the same, but maybe it's different. You could do LEO classes only, like there are LEO classes only, but then there's all kinds of exceptions to that. There's emergency service people, they still get on the blue list or whatever with Glock. So firefighters, EMS, and others can get in there. But then people that work at gun shops can also get in there, and that's how we got in. So we went to LEO ones, but we could have also gone to ones that were like both or not even LEO. It's just that, the way that it worked out with the schedules and stuff, we were able to take these ones that were law enforcement only. We didn't really
Oh,
care about that
yeah.
part. We
I,
wanted to take it with Dennis Tooler. So anyway, there was both on the schedule when we took them.
so I just went and checked it out on because I wanted to know because I think this is one of the future things. Now, it does say, yeah, you must be an active retired law enforcement military or military officer, private security, Glock dealer or range employee, or a current GSSF member. So
There
you
you
can
go.
join the Glock Sports Shooting Foundation and get in. So
There you go. And definitely worth it. GSSF matches are fun. They're awesome. And they give away Glocks like water. Like they give away multiple Glocks at every Glock event. Like GSSF is the coolest thing. One of the reasons I like Glock so much is because they have like there's no Smith and Wesson thing where they're giving away dozens of Smith and Wessons every week. But like how many Glock events there are in the GSSF, right? And there might be, I don't know, 5 or 8 on a weekend or something during times of the year when they're hot. And every one of those are giving away dozens of Glocks. Like everybody who wins every event, and then just random like high score person that has the coolest holster, like they just give away Glocks. It's cool. I never won. Wait, did I ever win one? I don't. I don't think I. If I won when I was a bland one and I gave it away or I sold it, I never kept a one that I won, but I don't think I won because I went with people and they might have won, but I've definitely gone with people who have won them. I mean, I know multiple people that have won them because sometimes you go to them and there's very few people show up, so like the odds of winning are like 1 in 6 or something. Because you don't have to necessarily. It'll be like I don't think the only the winners win. It'll be the winners win, but that a Glock maybe, but then randomly someone else who participates just gets a Glock because it doesn't cost them nothing to give away Glocks. Really, they don't think they cost that much. Anyway, I think that CSSF is really cool, and if that and I forgot that gives you the armorer's course. And have you taken an armorer's course?
No, a friend of mine did. That's the only reason I know about it. But that's one of the reasons I want to
It's just methodical.
take
So,
one.
like anything, like you can imagine, like you can open up your Glock without breaking the warranty, essentially. So they're going to teach you, just like any kind of course like that, they're going to teach you everything and more than you ever wanted to know about every single part, including all the parts you don't care about, like the New York triggers and all that. So the cool part is they also teach you about a couple of things that you can't even buy as a regular person. I mean, you can buy aftermarket versions of them, but like the military stuff that they make for Glocks, and you can't normally you don't take there's two armorers courses. There's a regular armorers course, and then the deluxe armorers course is usually less often and more expensive. And then I don't know if it's fewer people can get into it or not, or if it's just a factor of it's more expensive and very few. But that one's where they teach you about the Glock 18 and shit. I don't think they kind of bring up the Glock 18 in a regular armorers course, but since no one ever has them, they don't bother to, no police ever have them and nobody else has them. So they don't teach you nothing more than they exist and
Well,
how they work.
how much is the membership to GSSF? Because they dang sure ain't answering the question here.
$35 or something wasn't expensive. I mean, they're
I
definitely
don't
doing
think
it
it
as
is.
like like a service to the customers. It's not like a money making thing.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm like, yeah, I need to join that. Plus, again, they have enough classes, and I do enough a little bit of shooting. They got the next few matches up: Oregon, Michigan, Idaho, and Ohio. Those are upcoming matches.
That being said, I know that there are I don't want to call them. I'm going to call them aftermarket armorers courses. So there's 34 parts on a Glock, like you said. If they teach you how a Glock works, the mechanism, you can imagine somebody could make an armorer's course, right? Somebody who has enough familiarity with it, knows how to write it down clearly, create the illustrations and stuff. So there's like alternate armorer's courses that aren't necessarily Glock certified, which big whoop, right? You're still learning all the stuff you want to learn. Now, it's possible that in those, they either teach you about the Glock 18 for no reason because they think it's cool and right that maybe it'll attract people, or they just don't even bother with half the stuff. Because that's the thing. If I was going to recommend something and you were just doing it for your own shits and giggles, then take an aftermarket Glock course that doesn't waste 8 hours because you don't need to spend 8 hours learning about this pistol. I mean, it's one of the cool things about it is how simple it is. And unless you really care about all
Hmm.
the other stuff like intricate like knowledge of the New York trigger and shit like that, you just don't need to be like told 17 times how to take it apart or whatever. The main thing is you want to know stuff like the parts you don't necessarily, the stuff you don't know you need to know, right? Like, hey, if you pull this part out too many times, it's going to get loose and you might as well throw your frame away. Like, that's the kind of stuff you really care about. Or like, push this pin through the same way each time so that you're not wobbling out the hole or whatever. Like kind of that kind of stuff is useful to know.
Hmm.
But you don't need to go 8 hours for that. You could probably do it in a good 3 or 4 hours, I'd suppose.
Yeah, I was just talking about it as a quote unquote Glock armor's course. This is when I was definitely when I was instructing or an instructor full time, and the more certifications you have, the better it looks. Especially if it's factory certification from Glock as a Glock armorer
Dude, if you can open a
helps.
Glock without breaking the warranty, it's competent or it's comfortable and competent. Is that the right words to know that you can do that for
Hmm.
somebody without like I'm just not it's like knowing how to take apart some look under the hood, knowing you're not going to break their shit and that Ford's going to back you up if you mess something up. Because that's kind of what it's like. If you break something, you're Glock certified, so they're there for you. Like they got a number you can call and you can call them. Like you're on the
Yeah.
clock.
So for me, yeah, definitely 100% Glock is there. The say, okay, this is something, one of those things I felt. Now, it doesn't mean I'm right, but it's something I feel when it comes to firearms. The closer you are to mil spec, the more it's been tested. You know what I mean? The more that specification that you're using has been checked out for hard use. And
Well, definitely in the
so
past,
when
I agree with you. I think going more recent though, it's just tougher to say because there's just too much variety and not enough time to have been on the clock.
I
But yeah, I hear what you're
well,
saying.
the reason I'm saying that is because it is time. It's time on the clock of, the regular bolt carrier group, like it's set up to be tested. Because there are things with like two ejectors on it, right? In the bolt carrier group, uh, is it POF or Knights? They have more than one ejector. They have like a different shaped extractor on one of the bulk carrier groups. There's different things, and I think that's fine because those companies have also, a long time and been time tested. But when it comes to things like piston ARs, not messing with them because there's no standard for a piston AR. And whose do you go with? You know what I mean? And so I'm leaving that alone. When it comes to triggers, there's some that are just like the ALG ACT trigger that's really just a smoothed out mil spec trigger with nickel boron coating. So there's nothing crazy done to it. And you can get that. And once you step into, different things and you keep going up and get more complicated, there's more parts are breaking and less testing done on it. That's just for me for just a GP gun that you're watching your budget on. I'm not saying you can't go freaking crazy and get the latest and the greatest and the whatever. But if you keep an eye on the budget and what I need and how things get like a little bit better, right? You just step it up a little bit, increase the quality of the trigger a little bit, change the coding on the bolt carrier group to make wiping it down easier than the Parkerized thing that we all went to boot camp with and had to freaking scrape out and get clean enough so the Q-tip comes off of it white, which is ridiculous, by the way. Um, like all that, I get, but like adding a little bit to it, almost like just little parts, and not overcomplicated, and don't change the overall functionality of the gun. I believe in stuff like that for that dependable gun. You can keep it stock, or you can add little things like a wider freaking bolt catch from Ford System Controls or something like that. A little bit wider, better trigger, but not going crazy, not going over the freaking $80 price point. Like LMT has a good trigger like that. Again, was it Geisley's sister company? ALG has a good trigger like that. PSA has one that's the exact same thing, a mil spec trigger with like sharp edges knocked off, and it's just nickel boron coated, and you just got a decent trigger.
Well, you can also with triggers. There's so much stuff you can do with a trigger. So essentially, you're wiggling one piece, right? You're levering that, or you're leveraging that, or you're wiggling that against a fulcrum, right? So there's that part of the
Hmm.
trigger, and that can be flat or it can be curved, and where they put wherever your finger is putting pressure compared to where that uh, fulcrum is, where that pivot point is, that's where triggers are different. So there's immensely different placement there, and that's kind of like where your hand is and how your hand strength is and what your comfort is. So there's no right or wrong there. That's just a whole bunch
Hmm.
of variation because there's different people wearing gloves. People need it to be like strong. People need it to be very light for hunting. So there's all of those variations, but then you get into, like you said, like the maybe. So I'm thinking of like the design of the metal, but now you're talking like the metal itself, the coating on the metal. Like, so you have two pieces of stainless steel, they're going to slide next to each other versus two pieces of coated stainless steel or painted stainless steel. That's why they never paint trigger groups, because that would be sticky and shitty, right? Like, but they will, like you say,
Hmm.
pour on them or something where they like kind of soak it in
Hmm.
solution and electroplate it, like electrocute it. and then the solution becomes like a hardened coating on the outside, and that can be super slippery, like a Teflon or better, or it can be kind of not gritty, but precise. Anyway, so they can fuck with that, and then they can fuck with the trigonometry is what I think of it as, like the way that it locks up. But then shit, then you flip the page, and now you can do FRT. Fuck, I don't even know all the different triggers anymore that exist.
Yeah, yeah, the
Uh,
FRT and the bio. What the frick?
there's the back
I
of
can't think of it.
things. There's the things where essentially they're complying with the stupid NFA, but allowing the
Hmm.
action of the trigger to get more use of all, either going forward or backward or whatever. So anyway, yeah, there's just, so I just want to kind of take a second there to say there's no right or wrong with differences in triggers. There's wrong. I think wrong is complicated triggers that are adjustable because they add more parts and springs and screws and shit that don't need to exist. Personally, I would never use an adjustable trigger. So I think that's wrong in an AR. But unless you're making a fucking, I don't know, competition gun or long range shooting, then that's what those are for. Or like some kind of hunting gun, that's what they're for. But regular guns, like I can't stand that stuff. But it's my personal opinion or whatever. But anyway, I'm just saying, like,
Hmm.
trigger stuff is pretty much almost like ergonomic or like your personal interface with the gun. For somebody to tell you your trigger is wrong or not is kind of like somebody telling you like where you put your seat in your car is wrong or not. Like there can be some like general rule of thumb, like don't be falling asleep behind the wheel, but for somebody to tell you like where to put your trigger or how to do your trigger is just like somebody who hasn't either shot a lot or shot with other people or never coached anybody, like just never figured out that triggers are, I don't want to say intimate, but they're kind of personalized, right?
Hmm. 100%. So, I mean, I just actually I like the conversation about building a stable of ARs and then what to put on them to keep it simple without going broke. Mainly because that's what I did, kind of. And you can still keep it interesting. Like I have a M16A4 clone build. I have a dissipator, build. I have just a regular M forgery, as they like to call them. I have something that's 7.62 by 39, just because. And those things, like I got them because yes, in an emergency or whatever. I have my regular gun. I have something I compete with, but all of them can flex into a role if need be. But because I live in New Jersey, my firearm for personal protection is not an AR-15, because there are other effective firearms. But poop hit the fan, yeah, it's an AR-15, and let the chips fall where they may, because you never know when mostly peaceful protests could break out and you get caught in the middle of it. But as far as um, something goes bump in the night, no, it's not an AR.
So I'm
Only
going to
because the consequences. Oh, I'm
and
sorry. Go ahead. But
and I hear you, and I still like the opposite of that. I still like the idea of the AR if something's going wrong, even in the house, in case it goes outside the house and you don't necessarily
hmm
know what's going on. But I do understand. Like I don't live in a city. I live in, I guess, in a city, but in a city in Arizona where it's not a city like it is back east, where guns are
hmm
rare and people would grasp their pearls. If I ran outside with an AR, I'd think I'd be surprised if if whatever caused me to go outside with an AR didn't cause a couple of other dudes on the block to come out with an AR as well. Let's say maybe one
Yeah.
of them have
And
like a
see,
action or a shotgun, but you know what I mean. Like somebody else would be grabbing something.
and with me, I want to keep it real. Understand, I live in a place where there is no gun culture really, and yes, there's pearl clutching aplenty, just by owning a long gun. Because the people that still think gangbangers, you know, only gangbangers have guns, are still the people that believe, oh, there's nothing wrong with having a handgun.
Well,
Well,
here's the
that's the
one thing
same
you probably
thing
don't
gun.
think about, Tony. That if you take a
Go ahead.
short barrel rifle and you put a silencer on it, that makes a machine gun.
Oh, 100% is a machine gun. And nobody needs a suppressor unless you're planning on assassinating people. I heard that from an elected official, so they know what they're talking about.
They're a lawmaker.
They're a lawmaker. They have to know what they're talking about.
Sorry, I had to interrupt there.
Uh, so Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, it's like an AR is a great self defense tool. No reason not. You know what I mean? It's a great self defense tool, in my opinion. Um, for anybody, but understand, there's a flip side. If you watch, damn, James Reeves has his own channel. He's with TFB, but he has his own channel. And one of the things he did was look into convictions. Um, of people with AR-15s and AK-47s compared to people that use other long arms, and there's definitely uptick in the number of people that got convicted because they use an AR. Now, people go, a good shoot is a good shoot, and I'm like, well, obviously, the people that say a good shoot is a good shoot don't live in a state that is anti-gun, as New Jersey, and has no gun culture, and they just don't know. I think one of the important things is listen to where you get your information from, because there's different perspectives of firearms based on where you're from and the culture you come from. And I'm sitting there, I've hosted enough of these Second Amendment events to have people that are so pro gun that they're bringing their family members to my diversity shoot to introduce them to firearms, but they still get confounded why anybody would own an AR-15. And these are conversations I've had, and this is the person's fifth visit to a diversity shoot, and they've shot AR-15s each and every freaking time. And this is a conversation we have to have. So you're not having this with a jury of your peers. These people are going to be some of the most ignorant firearms people you've ever met. So you're going to have to overcome that stigma and be aware of that. Everywhere ain't the same in America. And I think a lot of people that give advice shouldn't when it comes to that.
Man, there's a couple ways to go here. So let me say, adding new gun owners slash states in the anti group. I just did a thing because we've been kind of chatting about that. So I put the robots to work once and for all, because I was always saying like 40%, and I think that's due to doing a kind of a quick search during a live show. But I put the robots to work and actually figured out what the 9 to 11 states might be. And then I think I swapped out Hawaii for Colorado because the robots weren't picking Colorado. And I feel like Colorado, I want to put my thumb on the scale a little bit. I feel like Colorado should have been in there. But uh, it's something like 35% of the country with if it changed, more accurate.
I don't know if you're dropping off or did I drop off and can you hear me?
No, I think I did because I'm getting a thing here that says it lost my microphone. Am I back now or no? Let me
Oh, yeah,
restart.
you're back now. I
Oh,
was
okay.
just worried. Um,
I was trying to put stuff on the screen because two things. I've got a poll going, so if anybody wants to participate in the poll, how are gun owners' rights in 2025? So not just this week or whatever, but how are they this year? Great, good, or bad. So far, we've got 13 votes. But the other, so feel free to vote on that. We'll talk about the results here in a bit. But I got something cool on my channel that I had to wait, and I don't like having to wait for shit on YouTube. I feel like I'm a big ass channel on YouTube. I shouldn't have to wait for shit. But I had to wait for this. So you see when people are chatting, like Scott right now has number one behind his name, and Ghost Town has, I'd say Ghost Town because Ghost is a different person. Huck has number two behind his name. If you go up here, this is this top fans thing. So you get credit on YouTube for commenting. Is this working? My audio is working, right?
yeah, audio's working.
Okay. You get credit for chatting. So whoever wins tonight will get something because I've been waiting for this forever.
Audio's
The audio is working. Yeah. So anyway, whoever wins whoever comes out on top, and all you got to do is chat. Like you don't have to super chat or nothing. I think super chat will jump you ahead, like leapfrog you. So feel free to spend money if you want, but you don't have to. But yeah, chat up, and whoever has the most points will win something. We'll figure something out. But I'm gonna start doing that as a thing because I've been waiting for that for a while. I think that's the closest we've got to some sort of cool way to say thanks for participation in YouTube. Yeah, like of all the things, there's been some aftermarket shit, like in StreamYard or whatever, and I have like this giveaway tool over here. I can, but nobody used it last time we tried, and it requires people clicking around and shit. So I think this is neat that it just kind of keeps track of everybody, and it changes all the time. We'll, we'll check his fingers. He's got some kind of springy finger situation going on. And I don't. I think maybe it's the length of the comments because I've kind of watched as it's been introduced to different channels. I don't think you guys have it on the Tuesday show, and it'll only be on live, so you'd only see it when I live stuff. But anyway, it's been coming up, and it didn't have nothing to do with size of the channel. So maybe it had to do with how often somebody goes live, and that could easily be because I only go live a couple times a week at the most. Um, Boom, super chat. Boom, look at that. Spending money like a true capitalist, and that got him to the top of the list like a true capitalist. Boom, look at that. Uh huh. And they can start to compete now. The super chat industrial complex can start to compete, and then we'll win. Well, YouTube will win, really, ultimately, but we'll benefit. We'll benefit slightly. Anyway, so um, Gunswater said this a long time ago, more of a statement than anything, I think. He said something like three manufacturing companies forge the receivers. And I don't remember what the numbers, but yeah, it's relatively few number of companies that make all the receivers for everybody else. Now, again, I think of it like an orchard or something. When, from what I understand, and it's not like I sat down and actually had conversations, but I've been in rooms where this kind of conversation was going on. That's why I feel like I'm not pulling it out my butt. But if somebody comes to him and says, "Hey, I'd like you to make receivers for me. Can you do them the best you possibly can?" Guess what? They put more effort into it than if you say, "Can you make them for me the cheapest you possibly can?" Because then what? You're going to put less effort into them, right? So yes, they all come from a couple of receiver companies or forging companies. But I think that just like an orchard, if you went up to an orchard and said, "I need your best apples for apple pie," right? They're going to give you this bunch of apples. But if you say, "I need your best apples for applesauce," they're not giving you the best apples like you're giving your teacher, right? Like that's a whole nother level of apples that there's fewer of, and they're going to cost a lot more. So I believe that been the case for a while. That like a lot of things, whatever they call like, what's that called when efficiency of manufacturer or whatever, something like that. Like there's only going to be so many people that do things, and some same thing with like grips and stocks and shit. I'm sure. Like there's actually probably only a couple of places that do the molding or the injection molding or the whittling or whatever it might be, but they work for lots of different companies. And again, those companies can come in and say, I want you to spend half a man hour on every item, or I want you to spend 2 man hours on every item. And which product is going to come out with a better consistency, right? And that's the way it is. Like, because you want to sell your product for $30 or you want to sell it for 300, and I don't think that's good or bad. I think that's just a factor that a lot of times gets blown over. People go, "Oh, well, my forge's lowers come from the same place as so and so's forge lowers. Therefore, they're the same. Therefore, that company that charges more sucks because they're just charging for the name." And it's like, no, they're not. They're probably anyway. I'm repeating myself. They're putting a lot more time and effort. They're asking for the finest materials, and they're saying, if they don't meet my requirements, I don't want them. And now all these ones are in the shit pile. The names weren't on them yet, or they scraped the names off, and they go to the next company and say, "Hey, we got a bunch of one-offs that the big company didn't want," and then that company says, "Oh yeah, I'll take those, and we'll sell them for pennies on the dollar." And they come from the same or apple orchard, they come from the same forge. Anyway, I think that's a factor that gets blown off, or the people that are trying to sell, the one that they're getting paid by. That's the thing that bothers me, is when people are like getting paid by the company that's, you know, oh, we're made in the same place as so and so. But let's not talk about anything I just mentioned there. Let's just say that, everything coming out of this factory is the same, therefore. Is my mic still working? I'm just ranting to the world. That's my unpopular AR rant that I yell out every couple of. I mean, it's neat to know. And I mean, obviously, it means competent people are making both, but I acknowledge that, unless they said make them to the same spec, they're not the same thing. Right. Allusion to, right? Like, or just kind of leaving it up for your own interpretation. And I don't really care when a company does it. It's, to me, it's the people that adamantly will say, FN is the same as this, therefore, because they're, by PSA, by an FN, the same thing. Like, yeah, okay, sure. Um, anyway, that was sort of a side one. Like I say, much more of a statement. I don't know if we spend too much time on that, but since we're blabbing about ARs, I figured I'd throw the rest of my AR speech in there. Ghost had said, my charging handle died on day 2, so I'm just wondering what we'll give out next. We'll just piece together extra parts. So since we're talking ARs, and I don't know if Tony's got anything, that we're about 2 hours. We don't necessarily have to keep doing these at 4 hours, right? But charging handles, I don't know if we've talked about this ever before, or at least not in a long time, but my experience with charging handles is different than other folks, perhaps because mine is with, in the 2000 era, when there was probably less options available, or at least, options that are old now. And then the people that I knew that were using them or having failures or upgrading them or whatever is because they were taking AR courses from the different instructors that were coming through Arizona in those years. So it wasn't like operators or SWAT dudes necessarily. Some of them happened to be, but we weren't talking about their duty guns. We're talking about the stuff people just own. So anyway, the use cases were in the desert, and like essentially bursts of heavy use, a weekend or 3 or 4 days of heavy use if they were really attacking a class or something. And then the rest of the time, it was just however much work use they were giving it, in whatever amount of training they wanted to do supplement to their going to classes and stuff, which depending on the person was not a lot or some, right? But I don't know anybody that was like Olympic training for anything, or like the tactical games or anything like that. But in those cases, which again is like medium use, I would say, but medium use in the desert where there's like, basically dust and wind and shit working against us, and the issues that you might have with grease compared to oil, compared to whatever other lubricant you might be using in like an area where you have to worry about rust. We don't have to worry about rust, but we have to worry about dust, right? So in those circumstances, I did see charging handles fail all the time. And I personally have a steel charging handle, but I know that I'm risking it because those are ones that I've seen fail. So in my opinion, a charging handle is something that is often overlooked by most people who are just builders, because there's, again, a ton of variety in every part of an AR. So the charging handle is no different. But because, if you're putting one under an optic, you're going to want to make it all weird with like a paddle and shit. And then depending on if it's left or right handed, if you're trying to get around a forward assist or not, like it can just get all weird. And depending on who's making it, they may make it this way or left handed or that way or two different catches or something. But essentially, whatever what Stoner came up with on his math when he figured out how to do it with aluminum and the catch on the left side, that's how that thing was engineered. So as soon as you start putting the catch somewhere else, or you start putting a big lever on it, you're tweaking it. And the big issue is you're kind of, how do you say, like a taco shape, right? You're like an upside down taco on top of your bolt carrier. So if that thing torques or tweaks or twists, I guess, then it stops. Like it doesn't move at all. And depending on if you get like my steel one where it can't torque, I got the steel one, so it can't torque, right? I win. Like there's no way I can torque it in the channel. Well, guess what? When you move steel down aluminum and you get a piece of rock in there, nobody wins. Like the rock wins. Like you can't get that undone. So I could really lock up my gun the way it's made. So some of them you want to be like, aluminum cheap, because if you got to rip that thing apart, like if it really has to be ripped apart by somebody with a Dremel tool, like you'd rather be ripping aluminum than metal. But that's worst case scenario. Anyway, I think charging handles are an often overlooked Achilles heel, because I've seen so many people with overcharged, or what do they call them? What do they call it when you put a big paddle on there? Like the giant paddles for underneath the scope or something. And then they'll tweak that thing and it just gets bound up in there, and they snap it or they tweak it up in there usually. And you can't open the gun anymore. And then that's crazy because now you have a round in there maybe and you can't open it. Like you get all freaked out. And then because of the thing being left-handed for no reason. Like I don't know why people think ambidextrous is a good idea. It's just a scam. Everything ambidextrous is a scam. I'm on the no ambidextrous team, so I know a lot of people hate me for that probably, but I've seen so many of them break because they're trying to do it on the left side. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yep. Yeah, it's like mittens gloves, right? Like it's learning gloves when in reality, in the situation, your brain's going to mittens. You're pushing on the side of your receiver of some other gun. But now that's like your third again. That's like your specialty. You're like, I'm going to screw around on a weekend, not I'm grabbing it. In my opinion. And I like Stag. I own Stag. Stag is one of those companies that's one of the ones that makes it for other companies, I'm pretty sure. They came out with their own after a while, but they were making them for other people first. So they know what they're doing. Like, I like them. And I don't have a problem with the reversed one. In fact, I think it's sort of engineering wise, I think it's super cool. But I would never recommend it for training or learning or dragging to war. Oh, I'm not even paying attention. I don't know. Besides the AR, like instead of the M16, I mean? No, I didn't know. I mean, okay. The M7 fires a 6.8 round. Okay. So it kind of looks like a 308 AR ish. It looks like some kind of HK ish looking. Okay. I don't like I agree with you from before. I don't like pistons because there's no proprietary. Everything pistons is proprietary. It's like going into 308 territory. You branch off into pistons, and now every single direction you go, you only can buy from them. And if they have multiple versions, they're not necessarily backward compatible. So you get really expensive and really fragile and really like the opposite of what Tony was saying, like time on the clock. Because nobody at all, the only people that use piston guns are people that are given piston guns or like our best friends with the owners of piston gun companies. Like nobody's buying piston guns because they're better, except for like the highest end operators because piston guns are better than direct impingement, period. But in an AR, there's just a billion direct impingements, so it's kind of like that doesn't stand. But anyway, so I like the idea that we'd go to gas piston for lots of reasons, mainly because you can fold the thing. The worst part about an AR is the stupid receiver extension, where the buffer tube people call it, where the stock is on, and that the fact that it comes out the back of the receiver. It's fragile, it's stupid, and it makes it so they can't fold the gun down. And to me, I think one of the best parts of an AK and the other guns I like is that you can fold that stock out of the way when you don't need it, but it's there when you do need it, so you can effectively not have to choose between a little gun and a big gun. You got both all the time. So that part of it I dig. I don't know about the 6.8. I don't know nothing about that caliber. Oh, that was freaking me out. I was seeing my mouse, but I was seeing my mouse on the other screen, on the other screen over here. So anyway, I couldn't get my mouse over here. I know people that don't clean their gun, and it's because the gunpowder, like you say, the AR is kind of designed to self clean. There's a lot of guns that are designed that way to kind of blow themselves clean, and the foul, whatever we clean off the inside, which we had to scrape off back in the day, can be lubricating. So, like that's the theory, I guess. So I get it, and my theory is that, or I guess that another way to think of it is when you have a brand new clean barrel, right? You've got your lands and grooves of your rifling, assuming you have standard rifling. So a lot of people will shoot a few rounds downrange, then they'll get some copper fouling on there, and the theory is that that copper fouling does something, and now they want just a little bit of copper fouling, and that's where they get their sweet spot of accuracy. It's kind of the same kind of thing. You get like a brand new clean machine, and it's kind of like not having oil in an engine. It's, yeah, it moves, but you'd want it to be lubed up a little bit. So I think some of the idea is that if you have your thing clean and you get into going, there's some potential that it could, if there's going to be a potential issue, there could be a potential issue. So I guess the idea is if you get it kind of primed up, it's kind of like warming up the engine. Like you've got it kind of good. My problem is it kind of depends too where you're at. If you're where it's cold, well, what if it seizes up? You like whatever you left in there, dirty or whatever you want to say. What if that's liquid solvent, whatever, gums up on you and becomes sticky or tacky, or just inhibits the operation of something that just glitches your operation of your gun, or moves a ring or something to where it snaps instead of just moving where it should have. And that could be like the worst case scenarios, I think. Or maybe the other way, if you've got so much heat that the solvent drips off and now you're susceptible to rust or something. So I don't know. There's no win. The only people that really win are the people that are consistently using their guns, because it doesn't matter if you're cleaning it or not. If you're using it all the time, you know intimately what's going on with your gun. So most of the people I know that don't clean them ever also run the shit out of them. So they know if they shoot them enough that they would know if it was starting to glitch on them, and they will clean them. It's not like they hate cleaning them. It's just that they know they don't need to. But I'm not trying to advocate for it either. I mean, that's like saying, well, I've seen one, race car driver do this, therefore I'm going to, all race car drivers don't do that. Like, it's just, some things people do, some people speak, not everyone does. But I'd like to run my gun. But I'd like to run my gun that much. So I don't take that advice very often, but I appreciate it. I have done it in the past, and I agree. Like, you get to see how your gun works. You get to see how you do, like, you know what I mean, like how good you are, what it's like under every amount of pressure you give yourself from having people look at you, even if it's just like very few people give a shit about your score. Maybe if you're really doing good, the other people who are doing good watch your score, but usually they don't care about your score. What they care about is how long is this fucker taking. Like if you get up there, you do your thing, and then you move on, everybody's fine with you. If you get up there and you're fucking around and you're fucking oh, blah, 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 you need to kind of slow down the whole thing. That's worse than shooting poorly, because nobody really cares if you shoot poorly. That's on you. It's up between you and the targets, right? Like just so anyway, if you go to a place, you start to learn how to do the procedural part of it, and that's just good for you as a shooter, as a something to do, and it gives your brain more to worry about. Because if you just go to the range on your own, people do this all the time. It drives me nuts. At least I seen this happen a lot. Obviously, it's not the only thing people do, but anyway, people will buy a gun or whatever. They go to the range, and they're like, "I'll stand here. I'll square up. I'll hold the gun like I've been shown or something. Bang, bang, bang at whatever pace or cadence I want. I'll look at the thing. I'll blah blah blah. I get better. Okay, now I'm getting really good bullseyes, or I can group it up, or I can do what whatever I was trying to do, and then they go home satisfied. But like if you would have tried to do that at the match, you're just flustered. It's different. Yeah, we're the same. I'm going to throw this out, and maybe it's a good cross or whatever or not. But I agree 100. Well, most of the I think 100% that I don't go to training, not training. I don't go to competitions much. But when I did go to competitions, I would pretty much look at it as an opportunity to just do stuff at the range that I didn't get to do ever normally, because normally you can only go there, take your gun out, shoot it, put it away, go home. Now I can go to the desert and do whatever I want, but when you go to the desert and do whatever you want, you're losing things like most of the time, like nice target stands, air conditioning, right? Like other people to help you do stuff or whatever, like an environment or whatever structure. So anyway, then go into some of the outdoor ranges and stuff where I'm going to say IDPA. It was the only thing I ever did. I didn't like IPSC because it's too much like gaming, and I didn't like any of the other stuff. I shouldn't say that. Scott's out there. I did Axe for quite a while, and then a couple of times I did something they called the backup gun, which I thought was kind of fun because mostly at steel, if I remember right, and it was backup gun, so it was like a revolver in your pocket or something on your ankle, and it was just an opportunity to get out and shoot. Anyway, so what I'm going to get at is when I would do those competitions, and I was training at the time, so I was paying it, I was hearing and seeing the instructors talk about all the technical elements of blah blah blah, whatever it happens to be, right? But when you go to a shooting event like a competition, whatever the stage might be, this or that, and I never liked gaming. Like I actually never did that. Where I call gaming where you have a stage and it takes a while for everybody to get their guns and move from one stage to the next stage. So I don't know how long a match is, half a day or something. like there might be 10 stages and they give you what, half an hour for 10 people to move between each of these stages, but then there's like 20 minutes or 10 minutes of that half hour is the time it takes you to just physically move all these people from one to the next. So as everybody's moving all their shit from one bay in a range to the next bay where these different stages are in the match, the people that are your gamers, they'll run over, they'll put their shit down really fast, and then they'll run over and start looking where all the targets are and where they should stand. I'm going to take 7 steps. I'm going to reload. I'm going to take 7 shots around this corner. I'm going to look at that target. No, I think I'm going to shoot that target first, and then I'm going to do the Texas Star. I'm going to reload, and then I'm going to run 7 steps this way. And then they'll sit there and talk to the other ones, and they'll go, "You really? I'm going to take 6 steps over there." It's like, "Oh, if I take 6 steps, my counterweight's going to be on my balance. So yeah, I think I am going to do that." And then he's going to tell the guy he's going to take 7 steps, but he's going to do 6 steps, and he's got to keep track of that shit. So that's fine. Like they're going there to play that game or whatever. I never bothered with that because I could tell myself I want to be surprised, because I really didn't care what I was going to be shooting, and I didn't care. I was always going to lose compared to these guys, so I didn't care my score. So what I thought of it as, I don't get to go to the range very often where I get to like take steps and then shoot around a corner, and then take steps and then peek around a corner, find a target, acquire it, shoot it, take steps, shooting, you know what I mean? Like you never get to do that in real life. So it's sort of like fun, but it's also an opportunity to move to the left and have to shoot off to your left. And now you have to come over here and maybe they tell you have to reload somewhere in there. So now you have to reload. Or maybe at axe matches, they would put like dummy rounds in there or snap caps or something so that you'd have a misfire and it would force a malfunction. So now you'd, have to deal with that somewhere during it, at a random time. So anyway, that kind of stuff is the stuff that I liked, and had nothing to do with procedure of the match or strategy of like how to get the best score. But for me, it was like, yeah, I could do this shit in the desert, but I'd be like poking around a cactus at a rock. Like this time, I got to go around like a barrier at a flopping target or a steel thing or something that I could actually go find a score on, like tape or whatever. Or I liked steel better, but so you'd hear anyway. So I just like that you had the facilities and everything, and you could, a lot of times with axe and other matches out there, Pima Pistol, they would put some time into thinking about the scenario so that it actually, just the scenario itself, got you to either run out of ammo or have to think about which targets to engage or something like that. And maybe some of them were like, I don't know, fiddle with something on the table and then engage, so that now your brain is thinking about 2 different things. So that kind of part of it I always found interesting in some of these matches. But like I say, some of the really gaming ones don't really have you do all that stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. That makes me think of, I don't know, nobody has to answer this, but how often have you found out about someone who was willing to sell a number of items, and if you wanted to in the future, let's say, sell it back, that'd be great. But there'd be no hard feelings if you kept it because it was a good deal or you just decided it was worth keeping or what. And that was actually helping the person out and then kind of giving you a test drive if you wanted it to be that way because you knew that there was sort of an exit strategy if you didn't like that item. I don't know. Nobody has to answer that, but that scenario may have existed for quite a few. Oh yeah, and you reinforce that, right? And that's where whatever, like you don't even realize I can't shoot left-handed because I suck at left-handed. Why would I shoot left-handed when I go out shooting, right? And then break your right hand, or you're holding something valuable in your right hand, and you've got to use your left hand, or you'd prefer to use your left hand. Maybe you don't have to. It doesn't have to be like dire circumstances. You just want to use your left hand. Yeah, you don't want to be that's the first time you have to try it out. Ghost makes a great point about, let me point this one, without a measure we can't improve, and that's another great reason to do competitions even if you don't appreciate it, because yeah, whatever the skill sets are that they're going to have you use depending on what kind of competition it is, you can measure that going, your to yourself, like one every year or whatever. And that's where a Glock match, again, like, you're probably going to lose because there's people that shoot competitions every weekend and they go to a Glock match just for the free guns, or chance to get a free guns. Plus, they're probably going to win because they're going up against a bunch of Glock owners who don't shoot that much. But so sometimes I go, when I did go to the Glock GSSF matches, I never intended to win. I would try or whatever, but I knew I probably wasn't. But I definitely knew that I could see what my score was this year versus last year versus the year before. I think I did them for about 4 years there. But anyway, so I think that was a great point. That's deep, dude. But it's true. I'm going to throw in there, as you're saying that, before you got real deep there at the end, I was thinking that, let's say that it's a naysayer, somebody who's like maybe just never done or never does, is here, and you say that and they go, well, my range, and I'm thinking here Tucson, like, what do I got as options for me anymore? If I start thinking about the ranges, there's a couple of two, three, I think three, maybe more, for outdoor ranges, and they may have something going as far as like matches or things. I know a couple of them do for sure. And then there's some indoor ranges, and they're privately owned. Well, I guess they're all privately owned, but no, they're not. The outdoor ranges, some of them are county. So a county range probably doesn't have anything going on. It might allow things to happen there, but they would have to allow it. And it's anyway. So private ranges is probably where you're going to go. Anyway, so I started thinking about, I was doing an inventory of what's going on in Tucson compared to what I knew used to go on in Tucson. And I started thinking, it's nothing I'm interested in. I like the axe matches. I got spoiled. I've talked about it before, but those were 2 gun matches where usually it's 3 gun, and I don't like shotgun. I think shotgun's stupid personally. So I really like just AR and just pistol. So and they weren't snooty because of the people that were going to it were cool and open minded for the most part. They didn't really care what you. So if you wanted to bring a revolver, if you wanted to bring, like, Scott would always shoot a Daewoo, like nobody gave me. It was cool. Like, shoot whatever you want. But um, anyway, so what you might think though, as a naysayer or as a never do, is, oh, that's not the one I want to see in the town. Whatever. Like, they don't have the kind of match I want. Which for me would be IDPA or something. I like indoor IDPA, so it would be an air conditioner. But here's the thing: if you don't go to whatever is available, like maybe bowling pin matches are all that's available, or something else that you don't think is so cool. But if you go to that one, you're going to hang out, like you said, all the benefits that you just said. Plus, it's something to do. It's training, like you're still pulling triggers in that. And most of the time, it's fairly efficient. Like I would say, effective pulling triggers. Like you can just go to the range and pull triggers and be like, "Wow, how much did I actually just spend right now?" Like, yikes! If I went and bought that ammo off the shelf, I'd feel like a chump because I just, I probably spent like $50 shooting it, not doing anything effective here, which is fine. I'm not saying people shouldn't do that once in a while, but most of the time, if you don't ever do anything, if you don't pay any attention, I guess, then that's what you're going to end up doing is just pulling triggers for paying to pull triggers. But if you go to a match or something, like I say, you do get at least some effect out of it. Like even if you don't win or even if you don't like it, you've at least had some structure, like you were saying. And I guess that's all I'm getting at is if you go to these, you're going to get some minimum benefit, if nothing else. But what I was going to add, I guess, is that you're another person that shows up. So if they're thinking about should we do another match, if only 6 people show up to the 12-person match, well then no, they're never going to do a third match, right? But if 18 people are showing up to the 12-person match, maybe it is time to start another one. And when they do this third one, maybe it is the one. Maybe they ask, "What do you want to hear? Or what should we do?" And now you get some insight, and now it is what you want. And you find out that everybody was right. You were right. Everybody wants that, and now there's 2 or 3 matches doing what you wanted, right? So I think that there's that element, and people don't think about that. We're not dealing with a lot of people here, so 6 or 10 people in an area can have a gun range do totally different things. Like a dozen people would bring someone into town, like a really big instructor. I would say anyone, right? Is there anybody that would turn down 12 students? I don't think anybody. I can't. The only people I could think of is somebody who's like booked out 7 years in the future or something. But if somebody's only booked out like a year into the future and you got 12 people, contact them because that's enough money that they would show up, like add it to their schedule, but for sure put you in as like, if anybody, fluctuates at all here, like boom, we'll flip over and make it your town instead. And because there's like doctors and shit that don't care what town it's in, they're going to go on October 5th if it's in Tennessee or if it's in Arizona or if it's in Washington. So you got those instructors know that if something cancels in Georgia or if it cancels in Minnesota, that they could turn it on in Georgia, or if it cancels in Georgia, they can turn it on in Minnesota because probably 3 or 4 of those students are going to go. No, they don't care. They're going to go wherever. They're a doctor. There's some tech person. It's the 7 or 8, or like I say, the 12. Boom, you'd have the. I think I say. I bet you would have almost every any instructor out there if you had 12 students. How long before YouTube AI hears that and thinks that's too close to having a gun on the screen? He described it a little bit too well, and then cancels the stream. I hope it goes the other way. Yeah, it's getting to be to where if AI is getting better, which it is, and YouTube gives a shit, which they should. And Clover, if he's out there, it's his job. It's his duty, his obligation. Some should say his responsibility for damn sure to make YouTube aware of this. But anyway, their AI should be able to differentiate between an aggressive, dangerous, right, violent, whatever the bad negative connotation of something in someone's hand versus an instructor or somebody just fucking talking about stippling, like a billion other cases where we're just holding our hobbies or our incomes or our whatever we want to call our defensive tools, whatever we want to call a gun. It's ridiculous that whatever crude first, years ago version of bullshit AI they're using to see what guns are on screen, you should be able to tell. Like, did you see the one that happened to Yankee most recently? He was standing in his room full of guns. So he's one of these people that has a shit ton of guns. He's insecure, so he has to put all his guns on a wall behind him. He's one of those kind of people. So he's got all his insecurities on his guns on this wall behind him, and one of them's fallen off because he has them on shitty pegs instead of some expensive ass hooks or whatever, right? So he's got it on pegboard or whatever, and it's how guns will lean on pegboard. So he kind of poked at it, pushed at the top of the cylinder on a revolver on a little stub nose so it didn't fall off the peg hook thing because he's got them on top of the peg hooks. He's not like hanging them from them. So like a top head revolver is going to move forward a little bit. Anyway, all he did is touch it, and then they killed his stream. And I think they were, they usually they threaten your channel and shit if you're touching a gun. But anyway, for something that obvious, that in any case, all I'm looking at it as the AI knew there was a wall of guns static there, and it knew that all he did was poke out a finger, and that the gun moved and stayed static. So that's a shit ton of understanding that the thing had, and it's still triggered as dangerous. Well, that just tells us that they've put zero effort into improving that I guess is what I'm getting at. And that should be what we talk to them. Like, look, if you're so worried about this, then put adequate effort into it. Quit taking people off air at a ridiculous level because of your absurd, like, incorrect, like borderline psychopathic, or maybe I don't know what the right word is, but like overreaction to anyone touching a gun on your fucking platform. It's ridiculous, and they don't have to be held accountable. But at some point, I don't like being the fucking victim and having to like, oh, YouTube is out to get us. Like, fuck all that. We're using a platform that we have plenty of money. Like, we're capitalists. We should be able to express our situation to them. Like I say, this is Clover's. Okay, he should be doing this. But all we have to do is express to them, like, you're overstepping your fucking bounds already, or whatever. And if we had organizations at the national level that had a minute extra time, like, why don't they fucking do this for us? Like, this is an easy one for them, and they would get such a big win, like such a massive PR win from this. But anyway, it's just my observation as somebody's been on YouTube since the beginning.
Badly in a competition next week. But outside of that, no, I'm not going to do anything horrific.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. I had the screen share up. So this system allows me and you to talk even when you're backstage. So I had you backstage. You must have been disconnected. I disconnected you. So then I didn't realize that you were backstage for a bit there. But basically, Tony was agreeing with me. Everything I said was 100% correct. And we'll just move
Yeah, yeah,
on.
yeah, great. Yeah, didn't even need me on there. I just co-signed on everything.
So let's see. This one is from earlier, and I unchecked the star, so I want to adjust it before I take it off the screen. But earlier, way earlier, New York Outcast had said, in some cases, spending more is pointless. we don't actually need a $3,500 setup to be effective. So this is when we were talking about ARs, and I'm
Hmm.
trying to think of how you would even get to a $3,500 AR. Uh,
Optic.
well, that's what I was going to say. Like thermal, yes, for sure. Really good optic, $1,000. Like it depends. If you're going for like long range optic, super rugged, $1,000. Like do optics cost more than $1,000? For like a
Oh yeah,
massive
yeah, yeah.
red dot, maybe 800 at the most. Like
Actually,
red dots don't cost that much.
oh no, 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 no. There's no limit to how much you spend on the optic. I was tactically fondling one of the thermals, and that was $8,000 alone. So
Well,
no, you can
thermal,
go.
yeah, thermals don't even start at
You,
like 2 or 3 usually.
yeah, you can get ridiculous with it, and I'm cool. And there's nothing wrong with having a $3,000 AR, but understand your $3,000 AR is just an HK 416 stock is over $3,000. So, I mean, if you want it, I totally get it. You know, that's the newest boom boom, and it's been proven and it's been ran hard through multiple countries that design has, but so is the regular AR. But if that's what you want, yeah, sure. $3,000 on an AR, cool. Not necessary, but fine. If I had the money, yeah, I'd own the 416, but I still think they're heavier than they need to be. And again, they're proprietary. Do you make your go to war gun an HK 416? Well, seeing as they've gone to war, I don't see anything wrong with it. Um, do what you like, but I don't think you should make the gun that you depend on a race gun.
All right, so that's
Like,
like saying, which is your go to battle vehicle, the Ford F one
yeah.
fifty or the Humvee? Sure, Humvees are made for
Mhm.
battle, but unless they drive 700 Humvees and break down in front of you, or like have a Humvee factory next door, you're going to only find
Yep.
Ford F one fifties all over the place.
Yeah. But with a 416, I don't think you're going to have many broken parts. And again, I think you'll drive a vehicle harder than you'll ever shoot a gun, even in a crazy apocalypse, freaking a realistic apocalypse, no rule of law thing, because civilians don't get in a shitload of gunfights. Usually, you put up resistance, they leave you the frig alone because no one wants to get shot. So
Mm.
I find it interesting that people won't look at real civil disturbance or civil war with regular people. Like, you know, South Africa was going nuts, but there were still people going to work, opening their shop up. They weren't all day gunfights. Like, you're not going to be in a militia. You're just going to try to live your life and not have to like pay tax to every militia if society breaks down.
Mm.
It's a craziness that people go on some adventure without ever looking in the newspaper to see what's happening in Gaza, in Israel, in the Ukraine, in all of these places. We have about 70 wars continually going on where people live everyday life with their countries at war. Well, what happens there and what goes on there? Look into it. I don't think they're all day 24-hour gunfights where they're going through mags upon mags of ammo. So their SKS worked fine. Their bolt action rifle, their shotgun. You can get something that's durable, but you can go down the road of I want the best of the best, and I bought a FAL that has a this, and this on it because there's the right hand of the free world. Cool, your gun probably will work. But yes, I think it would be a good job to have something that you can actually replace parts. But if shit hits the fan, nobody freaking Amazoning your damn firing pin to your house. Like, so
Dude, you could have
being
bought
able to
yourself.
own more being able to own more than one or having the parts that you can swap out as a user makes sense. And that's when it falls in my opinion, it falls into the budget of somebody who runs something like an AR-15 that you can almost swap out every part as an end user. And most you'll ever need is a vise and a torque wrench. You know what I mean? And just a couple of tools.
Well, and
Um,
if you've got 3 ARs, you've got a working AR no matter what, right? If you've got like
yep,
3 parts of ARs, I should say, you probably got a working AR. If you had 2 busted ARs, you have a working AR more than likely. So there's like that
yep,
factor that unless something's super common, you're just not getting that. And it doesn't matter the brand. Like you're going to be able to
yeah,
match a lot. And even if the worst case scenario it doesn't has a shitty dwell or gas systems off, you have a single shot AR, bang, bang, bang. But you have to charge it each time. Who cares? Like it's still working. But you
Yeah.
brought up a bunch of stuff there, so I'm gonna go. I don't know which one to hit first. So I'm gonna go with the future of warfare first, and then I'll hit the society breaking down. But when you kind of were alluding to stuff there, what you're mentioning with the role or the characteristics, maybe that the characteristics that the shit hits the fan ish. I need this gun for whatever might come. Type is that a thing? Type scenario. Thinking backwards and what we've already experienced, right? And that's changed drastically, honestly, with the whole 2020
Mm-hmm.
bullshit and seeing some countries kind of like Venezuela and shit. Like there's been some, I'd say, happenings of the last, let's say, 6, 10 years, 10 years for sure, but like 6 years even, that have really
Mm-hmm.
changed the way that we might think of like a shit hits the fan scenario or a rule without law, whatever you want to think of, like a scenario that's not normal to the United States. But we also have the concept of how do we get a warfare thing going with another state actor. So we won't get into like without the rule of law just necessarily, but like if there's actually something goes down with another country, are they sending over troops? Like back in the day, we would have conversations like there are enough fighting aged males in China, it'd be like 1 to 1. If we had 300 million people in the US, they had 300 million fighting age males. But that was years ago. Now they're looking, I've heard estimates that China can't last 5 more years, that they're aging their population so quickly and they have nothing to replace it with. That China's in a lot of ways, they're like a population vacuum or something like a bubble. And they're going to be in a completely different world. We're going to be in a completely different world. That being said, what is China making? Aircraft carriers for humans or aircraft carriers for drones? Like, what's the future of robots and warfare look like? So, if we're looking at the future like Vietnam, that's stupid. If we're looking at the future like the global war on terror, maybe that works for Arizona, but it don't work much for Minnesota, right? Some aspects of it might work for Minnesota, but it ain't going to work for New Jersey probably. So, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like, what's the future of warfare really? Like, is it a shit ton of little tiny drones falling out of the sky and we don't know what happened until every, person of interest just drops dead because of a little blank shell went off on their forehead, simultaneously? Or, what I mean? You're scared to poke your head out the door. Like the grid goes down and like, who are we even battling? Like all of a sudden drones just go out and take out all of our supply. Like, what kind of war are we looking at where we can just run outside with a shotgun and take care of business? It's been a while since we had to worry about the blade of grass being effective. You know what I mean? Like them running people onto the shore in waves of humans. You know what I mean? Like if anything, they're going to drop truckload, or what do they call them, containers, cargo containers will just open up and robots will come walking out with Thompsons or something, or laser guns or some shit, maybe just chainsaws, robots with chainsaws. What the fuck are we gonna do with that? So all I'm getting at is realistically, like, what are we looking at state actors wise? Like, are they really going to throw human beings at us going into the future? Does Russia have waves of human beings that they're not throwing at Ukraine? They're holding off because, hey, we might need to go to war with the United
Yeah.
States. So we're just going to keep
Yeah. No.
legions and legions and legions of active fighters that are just waiting, and they could be dropped off in the United States, like in on the shore or something, and they're just going to start walking. Like it just makes no sense. So the future is probably going to be fuck with somebody and then send robots in to execute people who act up or something. But I'm
Well, you
just
saw
I'm
what would
being
happen.
scientific.
We saw what would happen. We saw human beings acting like human beings during COVID. We saw them acting that way during. So, I mean, truthfully, it could be your neighbor, could be your local law enforcement, could be anything. But understand, having just a skill set, the tool, and being aware of what's happening around you is a lot makes more sense than worrying about a brand or worrying about, what kind of ammo should I have, full metal jacket, should I have green tip, should I have, it's like, bro, just pay attention to what's happening. Have a skill set on you to be able to use your firearm, have your gun on you. Um, because we talk about this a lot, and sometimes, and I say we on both the Damn. Really, we need to come up with an easier name. Unfiltered. What is it? Locked,
Locked,
cocked,
loaded.
and unfiltered.
There was a lock. Oh,
Locked,
I know what it was. Locked and loaded. So there was another channel,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
said locked and
Locked
loaded.
and
So many
loaded, like
damn
Stevenson.
times I was saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, locked, cocked, and unfiltered. We talk about that, and we've talked about it on other podcasts I've been on. And it's like you need to keep things realistic and simple. They're not going to be running gunfights, and if they are, really, I know I'm not ready for it. I'm not even ready for a slow walking gunfight, much less a running gunfight. I'm not in that friggin'. I'm just not physically fit. So I have a firearm in case someone comes and tries to harm me in my home or me and my family in our home, or even while we're moving. I have the ability to defend myself when we're in a vehicle. Fine. That's to my estimate, to my belief. That's good. Do I need to be in better shape? Yes, but that's a totally different discussion. I am not joining a militia. I'm not freaking ambushing blue helmets. I'm not participating in the Wolverine fight against the Soviets and the Cubans that parachuted into Trenton. Mainly because if they parachute into Trenton, they probably thought they'd already been here and destroyed the place, and they'll leave because of how it looks. So, no, I don't look at it, but I do look at it as something I might need for self defense because I live in a city area next to a major metropolitan area that there could be organized looting going on, and I have to be able to defend myself to get the flock out of Dodge. So I have that going on. Those are things I feel are realistic. And pretty much I'm getting the heck out of here because there is no plus for staying in the area like this. So I have somewhere to go to. I have a couple of places to go to. I think all that planning is more important than which gun you're going to use.
Well, okay. So now let's get into the society breaking down. Unless do you have to go anywhere? We're getting at the 3 hour ish point here.
No, we don't. I just want to eat dinner in probably an hour.
Same here. I was thinking about that before we started. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to eat after this, but I'm not dying. But just on the kind of the theory of society breaking down, I don't know if we've mentioned this in a while, if at all, on this particular show or just in general. I haven't heard the conversation come up. Although I don't really pay attention to channels that talk about this kind of stuff very much either. So, but just in the context of all the new data I think I have in my head from the cartels and that kind of thing, and listening to people kind of war game or scenario play how it would be to deal with the cartels in different ways going forward. So I like to think a realistic scenario could have been if the election went the other way and we had the Democrats win and their goal was to leave the borders open rather than closed, so they allow a lot more, stuff going across the border and that kind of thing. And then because they have that opinion, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I mean, obviously everybody can make their own opinion on that, but because they'd have less interest in that situation in general compared to other situations, they wouldn't be monitoring it. And I think that's where you might have seen some, well, I don't know, festering or like roots being grown for the cartels. So now the cartels maybe feel emboldened or like there's less resistance, or maybe there's some reason because they figure, they only got this 4 year opportunity and then the political thing's going to switch the other way and they know they have to do what they can, before their time's up or something. And, they start to invest in restaurants and food distribution and I don't know, cigarette machines, whatever the hell criminal things do to get, their money, launder their money and do more than just drugs. Because after a while, they're way bigger than just the drug industry, right? Like the whole drug trade and everything. They could have more reach in the drug trade, but that's not their goal. They take their money and they take over avocado fields. They diversify. So a diversified, more intrusive cartel system is what I would be concerned about. Is a realistic future where we see a society breakdown? Because if you have, in addition to allowing all that to fester or happen or gain roots, let's say, if you also devalue an emphasis or a funding or however you want to look at the law enforcement side of it at the national and local level, then what you end up with is little islands of lawlessness that eventually the power struggle, or the power, what do you call it, like paradigm switches from, yeah, there's a sheriff and shit, but we've all seen the movies, but the bad guy's really running the show. And whoever the bad guy is with the most violence or, whatever influence at the time is the one that's kind of, kingpin in the area or whatever. So not to our kingpin, but like the bad kind of kingpin, right? So that's where I'd be concerned, is if we saw a thing where we've devalued federal and just value in general on law enforcement. And what we saw when that happened is, why would anybody go into the field of law enforcement unless you were corrupt, right? Like if you knew you were going to go in there because you were invulnerable, because you were corrupt, and the bad guys were going to pay you, and the good guys were going to leave you alone because they just wanted their job to finish out their pension or whatever. Like, that's the kind of police you'd have. And that's where you end up having, like I say, kind of a paradigm shift. I don't know if it's the word is for shift in kind of control between the state, which is really just everybody saying, yeah, the sheriffs are in control, right? But as that shifts, then you see what you see in Mexico in some certain regions, right? Where it's like, yeah, there's the sheriff and shit. And yeah, there's the federal police are here, but that guy over there runs the town and those are his officers, and you don't want to fuck with them, and you don't go out on Tuesdays because that's the day that they do. You know what I mean? Like that's what we'd end up
Hmm.
seeing. And in those towns, where the fuck do you want to own your AR-15, before or after that happens? And how do you see that
Hmm.
creep happen? You know what I mean? And how close did we get to that? Where, I mean, I'm not Trump this or Trump that. I think the Trump phenomenon is interesting as shit for sure. Like there's such a freaking phenomenon there. But I mean,
Well,
seriously, if we would have gone the other way, what would it look like 6 months later with cartels and influence? And seriously, do you think she would have gone like, I'm assuming it would have been her, right? I'm assuming Democrat would have been her. Would she have gone after, you know what I mean? Like, it just would have been so different. And I don't know if that would have had to me, like, there was only one conclusion, lawlessness, but I could totally see it happening. I don't think that's science fiction.
yeah, it doesn't take too long. I mean, Fat Electrician just did a piece on the Battle of Athens, where World War II vets actually had to push back and take up arms to try to take their town back from corrupt government officials. Like, stop acting. I mean, it's like, dude, you can know history or trust government. You can't do both. And this really, it's time for us to understand that stuff can go sideways, and the whole world didn't come to an end. It could just be local incident, but it's like, okay, are you prepared? And again, when it comes to this survival thing, a whole bunch of people fall into this gun owner wet dream that you're going to be some kind of lone wolf. And it's like, no, you need to have a circle of friends, or at least acquaintances that you can trust, but also that have skill set, that have things that you don't have. Radios, the ability to communicate, the ability to resupply, maybe reload, medical, just a whole lot of other things that you can't do on your own. You should be able to at least have somebody in your circle be able to do those things. And one way to meet them is to actually participate in stuff that happens at ranges where these people go. I mean, it's not crazy. I hate to, I'm doing it intentionally. I'm being circular with the conversation, but it goes back to competing and participating in shooting sports. The Venn diagram of self sufficiency, gun ownership, and shooting sports overlaps significantly, especially with people that have skill sets and know how to do things like EMTs, teachers, nurses, first responders. There are a lot of those people own firearms and compete.
My skill set is nunchucks, and it overlaps with some of those things, like some of the circles you mentioned. I like to think that the future, I'm going to be about one third Mad Max, one third uh, thing. What was it? That one dude from Platoon, and then one third Terminator guy. Not the human though, not the Terminator guy, but like the guy who came
Oh,
back in
okay.
time from Terminator. So I'm not unrealistic. I I I think I have a pretty good balance of my skill sets in the future. And of course, I'm training by watching those movies in about that ratio. I
Over and
want to
over again.
watch, yeah, over and over, but like in that ratio. I don't want to watch too many Terminators, let's say, because then I would get too many of those skills. I want to also watch some Mad Max in there.
Oh, you got to mix them up. Plus, after you get past the second Terminator, it just kind of sucks.
Right.
Um,
That was too many skills. Remember, one of the skills
yeah,
y'all can do is by chatting out there, and then you'll have more things. And whoever wins the chat off, otherwise known as the experience points or whatever it's called over here, I've got it on the screen. Like you can literally watch it as we're chatting here. But whoever wins over here is going to win something. And it's probably going to be a knife. If I can dig my way over to where those knives are, I will probably have a knife giveaway. So right now, Foss is winning by cheating by putting in money, but you could cheat by putting in money or just chat a bunch of ways. And once you chat a bunch of ways, you start to creep up the thing here. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us. And I see that Gun Owners Radio is out there. I didn't say hey before, but they go live every set. Well, they have a live premiere technically every Sunday, but focused on firearms, gun ownership in Southern California. I believe one of, if not the most active local level organization doing the lifting of a state level organization. One of the few, and one of the very few anymore, organizations that also broadcast on the regular. So they broadcast on Sundays over here on the YouTubes on Gun Owners Radio. And Tony's been on their show multiple times.
Gun Owners Radio. Yes, I have. And I'm about to hit them up to go on again after we get our 501c3 and I start doing my charity tour, trying to get word out. And hopefully, we have some really cool things as a fundraiser when we get started. That's what I'm hoping to kick off with a fat, juicy fundraiser. Maybe firearms or just a lot of firearms related gear. So it's easier, to get out there, like parts, stuff from different manufacturers, cleaning kits, just stuff that you put it together, and it's like a pretty cool gift. And as somebody who, you just want to help out what we do and with our mission, it's not like crazy that you'd participate and give us a little bit of money for a chance to win a really cool package. So I've been trying to put stuff together that's not firearms related because I think it's easier to get a yes from people with that. But to have maybe something depends on where I'm hosting the giveaway at. You know what I mean? Because some places don't want guns, but I could have gun related stuff.
We can talk about that because you'll have a little bit of time. But yeah, you could even do something that's like CD players and air fryers and, like a package that's like that for people that one, just want that kind of stuff, or two, for whatever reasons, that's, you're limited or whatever. If you wanted to go that way.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't really make a difference. You can put a package together because it's just about winning something and helping us out. I mean,
Yeah,
some people
it's a good
just
way to say thank you,
donate
really.
money. Yeah, because some people just donate money, but some people at least want a chance to win something or get something, and I totally get that.
Let's see. So, Gun Owners Radio had said earlier. So, if you're not going Gucci, where do you say is the sweet spot? I'm assuming that was in reference to like cost or expense of an
Hmm.
AR-15. I don't know what it costs anymore, but I would go with, on a spectrum of 1 to 10, I would say an 8 or better for the receiver. I believe that the lower receiver is like a big chunk of the gun. As far as the barrel, a lot of people say the barrel is the AR-15, and I wouldn't want to disagree with them. I'm not a barrel snob, but I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I wouldn't even consider anything less than an 8 barrel, just because it is the backbone of the gun. If nothing else, like if you buy a warped one, you're wasting your time. You buy one that they just did something sloppy in the drilling or something, you're wasting your time. And if you get it all perfect, but you bought a mid or bad one, then you barely get 10,000 rounds out of it, and you're putting it all back together again. So, me personally, spend all the money on the barrel and the lower, then your upper roll carrier, other guts, 7, like 7 out of 10. I wouldn't go nuts, but I'm not gonna buy garbage either. And then the rest of it, I would buy whatever, that's ergonomic, that's brand preference, that's looks and colors and stuff that you want. But again, I would say 7 or 8 quality. All you really need is a handguard that's strong. I agree with Tony 100%. Fixed sights. Part of the thing you're buying this gun for is to fight with it. So why put breakable, flimsy, foldable things on it? If you're putting a hunting gun together that you're going to use in an elevator, then I don't care. Put sights on that or folding sights on that. But on a regular fighting gun, inexpensive iron sights that don't fold or anything, and then some kind of stock and grip that work for you, mags that are decent, so mag pulls, and then a light and a decent light. So all that together, I don't know what that costs, but I'm going to say that's mid, because I would say most of those parts are, while they're good quality, I don't think any of those parts need to be necessarily expensive. A lot of times they're competing with each other, and especially if you're willing to buy a year old or something, or a color nobody likes, like maybe they make it in a green color that for the Marines, and then of course nobody wants that color green, then they'll buy that for like $8. Everything else is $12. That kind of stuff happens. Anyway, so I don't know if that's my
Yeah.
answer or not, but I guess my answer is buy decent shit, but only buy the stuff you actually need. So the receiver, the barrel, the actual working parts, and then a light. And don't think about a red dot. I think those are waste of time personally, but it's just such a big cost. It could be half the cost of the gun. So get your gun that works, then worry about the flash, the flashlight, but the light on top, or the thing on top. Like the light, I think is necessary. You can always upgrade a light since it's so easy. But anyway, that's my answer. Is just stay minimum parts so that you can stay good parts and stay mid price.
Yeah, I mean, I answered it depends on your budget and what you believe is happening. Now, I mean, a lot of people want a price. You know what I mean? They want a number to
Yeah,
shoot at. And I'm like, okay, a number is dangerous because the numbers I have are based on manufacturers I'm thinking of. Now, you go with a number with your local dude that builds AR-15s at the gun shop, and then he giving you garbage, but I gave you a number of $1,500. 15 to $1,800 is a really solid spot for most duty guns stock from the factory. Like you're not doing anything else. You buying that damn gun, and I'm done here. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to match uppers. I'm not trying to get a bolt carrier group from here and there. I just want one price, buy once, cry once, and I'm done. Okay, cool. We're talking BCM, Sons of Liberty Gun Works. Um, I used to say Arrow, but now they're not because they're not delivering like they should. But like, there's a couple of just right there off the top of my head that I think are a good duty gun that you don't have to jack with anymore. Get a sling, get a light, and you're done. The optic thing, again, that depends on you. Red dot, or in my case, a prism optic is better because I have stigmatism. And also with a prism optic, it has etch reticle on the glass already. So I don't have to worry about the battery dying or the gigantic EMP that goes off and fries all electronics because somebody told you so. Um, I think those things work. How deep down the rabbit hole do you go? It depends on you, but understand a firearm. Look, I look at, I'm into guns. I like guns. I like shooting guns. I understand it's a perishable skill set. Marksmanship is a perishable skill set, so you should practice. But when you're talking about survival or living, I mean, not survival, but like living through something jacked up, where having a gun is necessary because there's a high chance you'll use it. There are other skill sets you need to develop and other things you need to buy also. Much like, being a police officer, they carry a gun, but they probably will never use it. During these emergencies, you'll probably carry a gun and never use it, but depend on a whole lot of other skill sets. Being able to talk to people, being able to float between groups, being able to freaking get food, get shelter, get water, and just get along with human beings so you can avoid confrontation are all skill sets that I place above owning a fire, above the importance of just owning a gun.
Don't forget nunchuck skill set
Hey, listen, I figured that's something you don't have to, say. I mean, skill set with
just goes to,
nunchucks, and
yeah, so goes with this.
and that's only out, and nunchucks are only preceded by throwing stars.
Because these are things that, if in a kind of an emergency, like you say, you can just improvise these. You can carry them discreetly. No, but I think for real, the what you said about you don't know if you're coming or going. Like, are you staying put? In which case, you walk outside. Do you want to show everybody everything you got? You're putting your cards on the table. Or if you're booking it, again, do you want to always have your cards out? There's some people that think, yeah, you want to have a show of force, but others would say it's your business what you've got, what you're packing. So if that's the case, if you want to be discreet or subtle with what you're carrying, then again, what choice are you making? Giant AR or whatever, like SBR, some kind of pistol setup, like something nowadays with the braces and the chassis or something like
Mm-mm,
this. When you start thinking about those scenarios, what I think are stupid guns, two-handed, what do they call 9 millimeter? Man, I can't think of the name. Pistol caliber carbines, that kind of
mm-hmm.
thing becomes as potential. Again, I don't think so, but for some people, a lot of people, I think that becomes a real scenario, like a real potential, having some kind of two-handed, bigger than a pistol, smaller than a rifle, probably 9 millimeter because that's what everybody wants to carry. Uh, Thing, that can be put away, can be put under a coat, can be with you no matter what. If you're in a emergency this or a line for that, or hitching a ride there,
Yeah.
realistically, what does the scenario look like for your area or what your circumstances?
So I'm gonna go with my, in my head scenario. Um, Things aren't that bad. Things will get bad locally, like what happened during Hurricane Katrina in down south, or Tropical Storm Sandy here in Jersey. There were people that were cut off for a week, 2 weeks, and they had people come through and try to loot their property. Now I'm stuck at home because people don't understand Jersey has a lot of places that only accessible by bridges, and they had them flooded out. You couldn't leave. Um, so there were areas where people were stuck on their little island. All right. Not many people here, but people from outside the areas were sneaking on and trying to loot. And you had no access to law enforcement. What do you do? You know what I mean? What do you do when you see a person checking your back fence and peeking over? Again, it's not going to be some prolonged gunfight, but this ain't the time to try to figure out how to use your damn gun. Um,
Or to hope that
but you got to have,
your
yeah,
sidearm is going to work for all scenarios for you.
yeah. And like also, it's cool because I've been I look at gun stuff because I'm in the gun stuff. Just like people look at sports stats that are in sports. So I'm looking at like a Glock 41, right? 45 ACP Glock holds 13 rounds, even though I can't have it in Jersey, that magazine. But I'm looking at a 45 that's not a 1911. It's a little wide. It doesn't weigh that much more than other guns, but still, is this something I'm going to pack, or do I do a steel 1911 that weighs fully loaded, freaking 48 ounces? Am I going to carry that all the time doing this, poop hit the fan thing? Or do you have an EDC gun that you carry now that you can carry then and still be able to defend yourself at a decent enough distance that doesn't mean bad breath? When you carry that little skinny, even when you carry your snub nose, how far out can that get? Are you used to carrying a bigger gun, handgun that reaches further? Because if not, that's going to be something you're going to have to learn to do that's going to be uncomfortable for you until your whatever scenario passes over. Do you want to
Well,
get used to it now or then?
let me take a break to say, or interrupt you to say too, like we were talking
Yep.
before about like the person that goes to the range and like the square range syndrome, I guess, where you assume a lot too much about your square range experience. And that's where, when you're talking about little revolvers, I mean, I'm a big advocate for revolvers, but I understand their limitations. And one of them is distance. With a small little barrel like that, accuracy is an issue,
Mm-hmm.
but energy is an issue. There's only so much energy that can be put into that projectile. due to the way that a revolver is built and the short amount of time it's in the in that barrel. So because of that, yeah, you'll go to the square range and you can go to 50 yards, and I can put that revolver right where I need to, with enough holdover and sat in there for a couple of boxes of ammo. I can look like some kind of pro at dropping the rounds right where I want them. But in reality, what's the energy? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
the round went where you wanted it downrange, which is kind of a feat and it's kind of fun, but it's impractical because the energy is so little at that range. You've lost so much energy from that projectile to get to where at any distance beyond just a couple of feet. That its ability to cause any of the issue, the things that we want it to be effective as a defensive round is drops really fast. So, and that's something that, again, like, you don't think about that when you're just square ranging it and you're just accepting your ability at no pace with no stress and ultimate repetitions. And you're taking that success and applying it to, like, now I'm ready for the real world, or whatever that's called. Is that,
Also,
I think that's a phenomenon called 9 millimeter itis, but I may have the diagnosis wrong.
I mean, truthfully, yes. What is energy? Okay, most people never push themselves again because they don't compete. They don't. You want to do stuff that you're good at. Many people aren't built to go week after week practice the thing they suck at because you want some feel good at the end of your range visit that you can actually hit something. Not that I've been shooting and drawing weekend the entire range visit and it kind of still sucks and it looks like a group the size of a pizza box. It's like, man, I'm trying to prove to myself I can actually shoot. Hold on. Let me do a couple exercises that I'm good at. Yeah, cool, but that's not how you work on your weaknesses. But another thing is this: whatever you're carrying, understand this may not be complete lawlessness. You still may have to go to work or somewhere. You go to the store to buy stuff, or you have to go down and charge all your electronic devices on the other side of town because there's a church that actually has electricity and they're allowing people to charge stuff. Well, you don't want to walk in there looking like, you know, you're ready for a friggin' gunfight, but you still don't want to go without something because there could be somebody out there. Understand, terrorists don't rest, psychos don't rest, evil people don't rest, and they may see that as their opportunity when law enforcement isn't around to take care of that grudge they've always had against fill in the blank, whoever is where you're at. So you need to have the ability to protect yourself and maybe at further distances that you're used to. And that's when something like a snubby ain't going to be your best tool, but having a good general all around tool will be. And that's why I feel something like a duty size handgun from Glock 19 to, the size of a, service pistol will come in handy. Even a service revolver with a 4-inch barrel is still better than a freaking lightweight snubby or, a little P365 that you can't shoot further than the distance of your car. So having the ability to reach out and even get to your vehicle. Oh, you mean your truck gun? No, if I get to my truck, I'm gone, dog. All right. If I get to my vehicle, I'm leaving. Whatever gun I have is not going to compete with the 2,500-pound guided missile that I'm going to jump into, that I will run your ass over with to try to get away from violence if I can. Like if my wife is there and something, I can't leave her mainly because I don't want to date again. So I'm going to maybe fight it out there, or yeah, I'll get whatever out of the vehicle and come back, or take her with me, or we fight from there.
This is really a simple issue, though. Just learn the sewer and tunnel layout underneath every place that you go, and then your wife will instinctively know which manhole to ditch into, and then you can rendezvous at the end. You just always come up with like the south or the east. It's always going to be either the south or the east tunnel that you're going to rendezvous at the end of that sewer
But
tunnel.
understand,
Very simple, very
you
simple.
still have to carry you still have to carry the smoke bombs to throw down
Of
as you
course.
pull the sewer top up. So you
So
have to make
yeah,
sure you have one. Yeah,
one
yeah,
time I made the assumption that the place was going to have smoke bombs, and yeah, you can't assume that they're going to have smoke bombs.
yeah, exactly. You gotta be smart about this. Um, so that's one of the reasons I talk about duty guns and guns that have like a military history background is because we were at GunCon and we were seeing guns that have moved further away from, that aren't AR-15s, Glocks. You know what I mean? And what we were seeing was a lot of stoppages on these guns that have been shot all day. And it's like, I'm like, you notice the things that were built on a standard that the military had, like as the baseline? Most of those just ran, but the stuff that wasn't was having problems. And it was like pretty damn obvious. So, yes, there's a reason, that the HK USP went through a 50,000 round test. The M9 and the Beretta 92, those went through thousands of rounds of testing. CZ75, Glocks, even Smiths, the M&Ps, they went through a crap ton of testing. They're good baseline firearms that you can get. Most of them, except the HK, are affordable. Even HKs are affordable. Just I feel you're paying more for the HK name at this point. I'm sorry, but the USP has paid for itself, and so has the P30. Now you're just paying for money because they actually can get it.
Well, I'll
Um,
give it like whenever I was explaining like the different types of stuff that can that can what do you call it, like how you factor a decent piece of metal from an inexpensive piece of metal. I think HK is not buying anything inexpensive. They're buying top of the line everything they're having made or made for them is to massive spec. I mean, they may not care about customers, but they do care about their product. Like I've never heard of. I mean, I've heard of them being overly complicated and being like, jam-o-matic or something like that, or not, rugged enough for, not rugged, but environmentally, like they can get prone to dust or something. I've never heard actually any of those, but I could understand those kind of complaints from like operators. But I don't like, when do you hear about HKs like falling apart or breaking? Like I haven't heard anything bad about quality of HK. In fact, they're the
not
opposite.
not one thing bad about quality HK.
It's just that they hate
But
their customers. They like don't care about us as civilians, really.
uh,
But other than that, and they're like proprietary. But anyway, I don't want to bitch on them, but I do think
well,
that
no, no, no,
they're high
no.
level.
Please put it out there. I think they're high level. I think they're very good guns. But one, the USP, all that came out before they were pick rail, so their accessory rail is proprietary. Um, but again, I don't care what materials you made from. You're getting a hell of a profit compared to other things. Um, I just think they're more expensive than they. You know what I mean? They know they can get the HK price because it's a legacy gun, and people buy them up immediately when they hit. There's no HK
They
sitting
sell
on the
to the
shelf
government.
forever.
Governments don't care about whatever
No,
they want to buy HK. That's because that government. It's like the comfort governments that buy Lamborghini. They're not like haggling about the price of the Lamborghini. They want a Lamborghini. They're paying for. Part of it is that they don't care about the price. That's the reason they picked a Lamborghini. They picked an HK because they don't care about the price. They
hmm
care about the quality or whatever, and
yeah,
they
they
want
care about how it
to
holds up. And I mean, it just pisses me off because my stupid ass institution had HK USPs in 40, and the state of New Jersey decides that, oh, we're just going to destroy them. We're not selling them. We're just going to destroy the guns. And I'm like, bro, all they do is carry the gun on the holster during an escort, and they shoot it for range qual. These are not guns that get the shit beat out of them. It's like, yo, these are great guns at a great deal if they were like $400. Police straight in, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, I like HK. I think they make quality guns. It's just really expensive for what it is. And truthfully, as a citizen, I can get most of that same use from a Glock for less money, or even at this point, a Glock clone for less money. Or for the same money as a Glock, I can get a Glock clone with a crap load of options that Glock won't give me unless I have aftermarket stuff put on it.
or Huck is saying that's not how pricing works. HK stayed below inflation for decades. Not sure if they are now, but they were forever. And again, we're not saying like I don't think Tony's saying that they're raping anybody or that they're pushing the whatever the market or something. They're just of the guns out there. HK is going to be on the top end of the spectrum, except for like the Gucci 1911s that exist now. There's really nothing more expensive than HKs. Really, I shouldn't say there's nothing, but they're definitely at the higher end of the spectrum, no
Yeah,
matter what.
100%. Stock guns that aren't race guns, HK is up there, man. I'm
SIG
not
used to
upset
have
about it.
some, but SIG has so many other guns now that like I wouldn't consider SIG an
Well,
expensive brand anymore. For a while, I think SIG
now,
was like I would consider an expensive brand, or I would
and
have
if I'm choosing between Sig and
like Ruger.
HK, yeah, if I'm choosing between Sig and HK, it's HK, in my opinion, has the durability, and Sig has all pooped on their own reputation. So it depends on what firearm we're talking about from Sig. If it's a classic 226, I'm thinking we might still be good. With a Sig 226, 229, maybe even the 220 Sig is still something I might trust. But once you start getting up to the Fudge Legion 226s, I'm starting to question again the durability, even though it's a design, it's still a 226 design. Is it still good, or did they? I just don't know because what I try to look at when I look at duty guns or guns like that is um, what do people compete with? Because usually those are people that put a lot of rounds through their guns, or what do real shooters who take a lot of classes run? Because they usually don't run something that breaks a lot.
Right.
Like, and I think that's also one of the things you'll pick up from not only taking classes but competing. You'll see what people are using, that they go through a high round count, and also they go through a lot of dry fire, and they can tell you what holds up to the trigger pulls. Like CZ75s hold up to the trigger pulls, but their springs do break. And these guys have replacements for them, and they learn to turn a gun down to replace that spring every 5,000 rounds, because there's something known. We actually stumbled across this discussion last week on the podcast, or Tuesday on the podcast, on Gun and Gear Review. And we were talking about Nighthawk Custom, which has prices that start at like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. And we all did the same thing most of gun people do. Yeah, well, it's a good looking gun, but it's probably very dependable, and you can have a high round count. And I'm like, hold on. And it just hit during the show while we were having a conversation. Um, how come? Understand 2011s and race guns usually start around 2011s from staccato, start over $3,000, around $4,000. You can get some of the top level staccatos. So a lot of people compete with them. But staccato is just an entry level 2011. Mostly these people who buy 2011s from different places spend like 5, 6 grand. None of them run Nighthawk Customs. None of the people that don't flinch over a $4,000 to $5,000 price tag to run a gun buy Nighthawk Custom. Why is that? I'm like, even Taurus has a freaking shooting team, and they shoot Tauruses. Nighthawk Custom don't have a shooting team, and I don't know one person that runs a Nighthawk in competition at all. Now, Friday, I'm going to be at my event, and I'm just going to ask some of the guys there that compete on a national level, have you ever seen anybody run a Nighthawk in competition? Like, I don't know of anybody that has a high round count through one.
Well, okay, so that's interesting. So then, um, okay, so the first question I have, since I don't know, we know, you know how Nighthawks are made. I know how Nighthawks are made. So Nighthawks they're unique in the fact that they come from Wilson across the street. So Wilson Combat
Hmm.
was making better 1911s than government. So government spec or mill spec is a couple of things. It's a size spec and like a quality spec. Like we need the gun to be, the pieces of the metal need to be of this quality. So kind of what I was referencing before, cheap metal is going to break or bend. Good metal is going to be better, and it's going to take more effort. So it's going to cost more. So somebody who's producing for the government, for example, is going to try to cut whatever costs they can. So part of mill spec, military specification, is it needs to be this size, but it also needs to be of this, I don't know what to call it, like caliber of material, so that it's not going to break ever, or it only breaks 1 in 100 times, or whatever the spec is. And the spec is always some sort of a balance of what do we need versus what are we going to pay for it, right? So they're trying to pay the least amount of money possible to do the bare minimum of the job. Every once in a while, mill spec is make sure the job happens no matter what, like astronomy or astronaut shit, right? Like it has to work, so we don't care what the price is. But most of the time, it's like this has to work, but it better not cost anything. So, you always hear like military contracts are always the lowest bidder. So there's that aspect of mil spec. So I think Wilson comes from the theory of mil spec is what it is, but it isn't ultimately accurate, for example, or all the other characteristics that people wanted out of a race gun. So Wilson started to make more towards a race gun. And then somebody at Wilson decided we have a different theory on this. So they went across the street and started Nighthawk. So now Wilson is making very high end 1911s for the time. Nighthawk says, I have a different way of doing it. And I don't honestly know what the difference was. And I even know the people, but I just don't know what that difference was. But they went across the street, like literally to this other part of the town, same town, and then started Nighthawk. And from what I understand, Nighthawk's deal was they say, oh, you bought a gun from us? It's going to be made by, let's say, Jason over here, or Sally, or whoever the gunsmith is. And then Jason or Sally puts their name on it, and then that they build the gun to your spec. So I wanted it to be this slide and this tank and then blah blah and this caliber. You fill it all out, and then they start making this gun out of some blanks. And you told them what kind of metal to make the blanks out of, and how blah blah blah. So the gun costs that much because you're literally hiring one good gunsmith to sit down with your gun and create it. And they're going to do all this work to it that a human would do making a gun from scratch. And that's not the same gun that comes out of a factory like Colt, where they make a shit ton of slides, they make a shit ton of this, and they make a shit ton of that. And then somebody puts it all together, wiggles it a couple of times, goes through a quality control a couple of times, and someone says, yes, this gun meets all of our standards. It's a 1911. At Nighthawk, it's like, this is raw metal. Hours and hours and years, like not years, but months later, I think maybe it's months, weeks later for sure. Uh, here's a 1911 that was made by Jason or Sally, and if you ever have a problem with it, Jason or Sally gets it and deals with it because they born, they made it. So, I mean, people who buy a Nighthawk are buying that, and you know what I mean? Like that, I don't know if that's the same person who goes to a shoot every weekend because they just paid $5,000 for that thing. But it's interesting what you say, that people are going to drop 3-4 grand on a double stack 1911, which is basically what a 2011 is, right? But are
Yep.
they 9 millimeter too, or are they 45 sometimes? Or are they just automatically 1911s now? Or I mean,
Uh, uh, so, because we were talking about the double agent from Nighthawk Customs. It's available in 9, and I'm thinking some of their double stack guns might be available in 45. My issue, and I know some are available in 10 mil. But my issue is it's not really an issue, just the thought again that popped in my head while we were talking about it, because we were like, yeah, these are expensive, and then I realized that we talked about Phoenix Trinity, which is like 5 to 6 grand, which is the same price as the Nighthawk custom. And I'm like, they have a shooting team. They have thousands of rounds you can put through it. We assume that a Nighthawk custom is durable, but it's only based on what they've told us. It's handmade, it's put together, it's made out of the best materials. And I'm like, so is the Phoenix Trinity, obviously, but it's not handmade and it's the same price point. So where does it come in? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I can get something from Phoenix Trinity, and I'm just using them as an example because I saw them, I've done videos, I've handled their stuff. And again, Staccato is an entry level 2011. These others, like Atlas Gunworks and others, are way more expensive, like a couple of $1,000s more expensive than an entry level Staccato. And I'm like, wait a minute, what am I paying for then if it's not durability and the ability to put a bunch of rounds through because it is hand built by a gunsmith? Like what? You know what I'm saying? Like we just make assumptions because that used to be a high price tag, but now it's not. It's just what top stuff goes for, and people have been seeing. People see that door now. Like before, $1,500 to $1,700 was a lot of money. Remember when Agency Arms was out there making stuff, making Glocks and putting those Glocks together? That was like a top end gun. And then when it got to like $2,000, people were like, "Ooh, that's crazy."
Well, I don't know because I
But
don't
it.
really do this at all, but been
Mhm.
aware of it. I don't even pay attention to it, but it like happens in front of me for years. But I don't know what the factor of back in the day. You're right. Like the guns would cost expensive. They would buy a expensive gun often and then start tweaking it. And but that's the thing. How much did they spend to tweak it? I can remember just my dad taking 1911s to the gunsmith every once in a while, and this wasn't my thing. I mean, I was like a downer on this shit back in the day. Maybe this is why I'm a downer on it because I can remember now that I'm thinking about it, a couple of times where this like I think we had like I can't remember like six 1911s maybe, and one of them was like 38 super maybe or 38 something, probably super, but then maybe two of them were, and then there was ones I liked and ones I thought were stupid, and then there was like a command. I'm trying to remember now back in the day, but anyway, I do remember a couple of times where I had no say. I would shoot the guns, but they weren't my guns, right? So I remember going to the gunsmith or whatever, and it's I'm like, you want to go to the gunsmith? Like hell yeah, I want to go to the gunsmith. So it's a gun shop, it's a gunsmith, whatever. So I'm going along, and then I'm like, why are we even going? He's like, oh, because I'm doing blah 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 to the 1911, and I'd be like, damn it, because there was this black one he had that had black Hogue grips, and in the 80s, black Hogue grips was the shit. Like
Mhm.
crap. Like you didn't get rubber grips on a 1911 anywhere ever. So I thought they were the coolest. It was my coolest fucking gun that I could ever play with, and I forgot what he was doing to it. Something stupid, putting sights on it or something. And I've always been stock. Like I like the rubber grips or whatever because I liked Packmeyer. I don't know if it was new, but it was new to me. So I just thought that was the shit having the black grips or whatever. And I think one of them he put checkering on the front, and I was okay with that after a while, but it took me a minute to get used to it. But I forget what he was doing. But anyway, I can remember that it was like a thing you would do. You would take your gun in, and because this is the old days, it's the fucking 1980s. Like you would
Mhm.
take your gun into the
Yep.
shop, and then after a while, you'd get your gun back. So it would be gone. And I can remember more than once, like going, "No, don't take the gun in, because then I can't shoot it for like 6 months or something." And it's like fuck, it was annoying. And nowadays, I guess what I'm saying is, when you buy one of these $3,000 guns, you're not doing that no more. Like you're basically shooting it. Yeah, like you probably might buy it with a few options you want, and maybe you're changing out something. But you know what I mean. You're not like having to have a ramp, whatever they did to ramps polished, or something blah blah blah, or something jeweled, or something checkered. Like all of that kind of stuff is just in the what do you call it, from the factory nowadays. And I don't know how big a factor that is, but that's got to be part of it, right? Like you don't what I mean. You're not taking your gun in endlessly anymore. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people do buy a $3,000 gun and then start that whole process, because that is. I'm not saying any of those 1911s when I was a kid needed any of that shit. My dad just liked doing that shit, and I think some of it was think about back in the olden days in the 80s. How could you have this conversation we're having? The only way to have it is go to the gun show and try to find somebody and have this
Mhm.
conversation, or go to a gunsmith and pay to do something to your gun so you could stand around having this conversation with the other people there. Like that are literally like people I think got fiddle with they still today it's day you fiddle with your shit because it's something to do. Like why not? Like I got this gun, why not try
Yeah.
something different?
I mean, because um, look, I'm unapologetically a fan of firearms. So, and that's what led me to advocacy, only because people were trying to kill that based on nothing. based on politics, and it pissed me off. I'm not even into politics. I'm just into getting these jerk offs. See, I edited myself. Jerk offs off our backs and change the law so we can actually have a Second Amendment like it was meant to be. But I'm at GunCon, and we're at the, I don't know if I still told this, we're at the booth for Gideon Optics. I love the guys at Gideon Optics because they really gun people and they develop stuff because they just like to shoot. So one of the guns they had at the table was a T-Sauce Night Stalker 1911 and 9 millimeter, and it's set up like a 2011. So it has a double stack, pistol grip, this polymer. And I talked to Mike there, and he was like, "Hey, I slicked up this a little bit. I did a little work on the trigger, just buffing it a little bit, and I got the Cerakote off the rails because it was really thick. And this operates really smoothly for a $750 pistol, which is at the low end of 2011s. Like, I mean, if you want to call it budget, it's a budget price 2011. And he had their red dot, green dot on it. Well, the closest target was 105 yards away because the way they had GunCon set up, that was facing a cliff, but it was over 100 yards away. IPSC targets. And I was able to use that gun to ring steel at over 100, between 105 and 140 yards away with a handgun because it's that slick. So, yes, you can get work done on your gun, but most stock guns now are more dependable than any 1911 we got back in the 80s, probably even the 90s. You can get stock guns that have stuff done to it that you would have had to send your gun out and have it not with you for about a year. And you can just buy that stock now. So I'd like to say we're in the golden age of firearms, and we are. And these conversations can be had online, but man, we have a lot better options than they ever did.
I'd like to say fuck you to DJ for reminding me that I was just trying to think back 40 fucking years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, yeah. Fuck it, DJ. I just thought about that too because it still feels like '80s was 20 years ago, and it's
I feel
not.
like it's a minute ago. Like it was before the 90s or
Oh
whatever, but just kind of before the 2000s. But that wasn't very long because that was before the 10s, which was before the 15s, which is before the 20s,
yeah.
which is before now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to somebody talk about how, yeah, I first got in the government in 2008, and now I'm here, and I'm like, 2008 was holy crap.
Yeah, they're
2008
like
was over.
my whole career back in 2008 was when I started, and I was 10 years old or something. And it's like, what are you talking about? 2008 was fucking yesterday or the day before. Wait a minute, no,
Yeah.
fucking 15 years ago.
So Tony, how long have you been in locksmith? I mean, not that long. I mean, I started in '93. Holy Jesus! A friend of mine made me laugh though. He was like, "Dude, how many people?" He's like, "You're the only guy I know that is still doing the same career he started 30 years ago." He's like, "That really doesn't exist anymore." And I really didn't think about that.
Well, I think a couple of questions ago, I was going to say, let's wrap it up because I keep Tony here 4
Yep.
hours every week and he doesn't get paid nothing. I think we got a super chat. So thank you for that. It was fun to play with this. What do you call this? Like top fan thing or whatever they're calling it. But I'm going to play with that a
Hmm.
lot. I got stuff to send out for sure. And Foss won this week by not cheating, just being a capitalist. And I will not be ashamed if a bunch of people want to throw money at this to try to win, but because I'll compensate by throwing out more expensive shit. But I do have a giant pile of knives that I buy knives because I like to buy knives, and I don't like anything with a liner lock for one. And then there's a whole bunch of other knives like aluminum handles and stuff I just don't like. And I also get knives from companies all the time. So there's a big pile of them, and I'll try to grab handfuls out of there and then give Foss his choice there. And then we'll do something similar going forward so we can bribe people to do all kinds of stuff like watch the show, comment on the show, participate in the poll. That probably gave people points as well, I assume, since it's all part of YouTube. But in addition to that, definitely encourage you to go over to Tony's website and you can check out his PayPal and his Patreon there to just directly support what he's got going on, or else the Eventbrite. I don't know if Tony mentions that he's on Eventbrite, but I like to think that Eventbrite could be a fund source, a funding source for his events, because you don't need to be in the area to use Eventbrite to purchase a ticket. So all that helps. But then, in addition to all that, we do have, I want to say thanks to DJ for linking to Sharon's project. She's got a Give, Send, Go to try to raise some funds as a Second Amendment advocate. She's done a lot for a lot of people, and she's trying to deal with some bills for cancer. So if you're interested in flexing that kind of muscle over on Give, Send, Go, if you want to throw a couple of bucks, she's just trying to raise some funds to pay for some cancer treatments. And that's a good person and a good project worth backing. All that being said, thanks, Tony, for joining us for so long each week. Tell us about what's happening with what you got going on in general, but also with Diversity Shoot.
All right. In general, what I have going on is I'm about to go to Goals. I'm speaking there in August. I look forward to it. I was actually talking to Eric Platt at GunCon. Um, and I look forward to going there and seeing everyone and speaking there. Also, they're going to have a pretty cool range day open to media. If you're gun media or YouTube or whatever, man, see if you can go on and sign up as media and go there. Uh, Look, pull some triggers, get some new content because it's the summertime, man. It's that slack time for gun tubers because nothing new is coming out. So at least you get some footage to put out and put out consistently, and also again an opportunity to network. So check out Goals. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be one of the speakers, and I feel blessed to have that opportunity. Also, paperwork is in. Accountant is coming up with boilerplate for. Our terms and whatever the heck you call it when we become the 501c3. I already put the number paperwork in for state and federal. So we're gonna be a charity, hopefully before we go to goals, so I can actually hit people up for donations there. If you want to help us out, go to diversityshoot.com. You can donate. Understand, you donate to me now, I can still give you a receipt for it up to a year from now. So please, if you want to help us, you can join our Patreon and donate monthly. I'm working on a campaign to get all of that going. I just want to be able to stay legal and not get kicked off of anything when we do our giveaways because I've given away um, an entire gun minus the lower receiver. I've done that with an AR before because it's not a firearm because it doesn't have a low receiver, but it's all firearms parts. That was one of the giveaways we did. So if you can help, please, I really appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. Go to diversityshoot.com also to see our schedule. Follow me on Eventbrite, and you can actually get the electronic mail notification. I have no idea why I almost said it like that. You can get an email every time we post up. Follow me on Instagram at Simon Says Train. Follow me on Facebook at Simon Says Train, and the second is for everyone. And follow me on X on the second for everyone. I really appreciate being able to come on and BS with you guys and talk about firearms. And also, Cocked, no, Cocked Locked, no, Locked, Cocked, and Unfiltered is the new podcast that we're on. Actually, we're recording Sunday. They just shot me a message. We have some really cool guests on, and we had some cool discussions like what we had here today with my friends Clayton and Chris. So follow us if you can, and listen to me every Tuesday on Firearms Radio Networks, Firearms Insider, Gun and Gear Review podcast.
Right on, dude. It's like you say that a couple of times. It's like you've almost said that a few times before.
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah, we had a great conversation today, I think. Well, thanks everybody for being participatory. I don't have anything against people that just want to say stuff. I mean, I watch podcasts where people have something to say and they say it. I've got opinions, but I got no script, and I really don't like lecturing. I've done this for way too long. I've all my stuff that I've wanted to say, I've said more than once. This show gives me every once in a while an opportunity to riff on something that I haven't blabbed about in a while, like my theory on AR lowers or whatever earlier. But I really appreciate the interactive nature of the internet, and with everybody participating in the chat, it really makes it possible to have a participatory show. I don't know if a better way to say that, but like, an interactive show, a truly interactive show.
Hmm.
But I really appreciate when Tony joins it because, yeah, I try to do this every once in a while by myself. And yeah, it's just a lecture. It sounds like I'm got something to tell you and you better listen. And I just don't like it. It's not as fun. So being able to, have a back and forth and, kind of, it's just way more enjoyable for me. Hopefully it is for everybody else.
Oh yeah. Hey, if you want to donate and help me pay for the computer I'm picking up tomorrow, that'll help. I'm planning on spending about 300 to 350 on a laptop because I found out that the Chromebook I have is not going to help me post the recordings. All the interviews that I did at NRA annual meeting. Yeah, I can't upload them or use stuff to get them off this damn Chromebook. So I'm picking up a laptop and we're going to do that. So if you want to help get those funds back in, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, really. I mean, we talk to people all the time, and there's people that $20 is a big deal, and other people $20 is not a big deal. $20 is a tip. So yeah, you never know. And I really like the the ability of crowdfunding. Where 1,000 people drop. Think about it. $2, that's $2,000. $20, that's $20,000. So a
Hmm.
1,000 people is really not that many in the grand scheme of things. And when a what do we call ourselves? Like a community, when a sector, when a group of people have that muscle, when they're able to use that muscle, which we have been able to do in the past. Um, Look what happens when Magpul puts out a new product. Boom! All of a sudden, everybody's got money for it in Magpul. If
Hmm.
we were, I don't know if you could invest in Magpul or not, but if you were invested in Magpul, your stock just went up. But I mean, heck, I can go on and on about little things here and there that something came along and boom, $20. Or when some event comes up and we need, everybody needs to throw 20, $30 down, boom, $30,000 gets raised. So anyway, once we've got that down, well, there's two things to it. We get that muscle, and now we're a little more formidable. Is that the way to say it? Like our adversaries understand that we're not at the mercy that we're normally at when they have all the funding. Because normally they can just outspend us on whatever it is, marketing or people showing up at rallies or whatever it might be. They can just outspend us. But in reality, since we have more people on our side, once we figure out that we can throw $5 out there, and I mean, without going into a whole bunch of shit after we sort of shut the show down here, I won't get into all the versions of this, but seriously, over the years, like so many times, we've kind of discovered that we have this ability to spend, and we'll do that in interesting ways. Nothing, but like I say, the other side has figured out that most of the time we don't do that. And I guess the downside of it is, I guess what I was going to say is that when we do figure it out, and probably the reason we haven't mastered this yet, is that as soon as we kind of figure out what'll happen is somebody will do something maybe as a crowdfunding project or a project maybe that, like when I did the playing cards, I was paying way more attention to this so I noticed the fluctuations or the little things that happen. But somebody will do something and then there'll be an echo or like a ripple effect. Like other people will do something similar. It'll spark like, oh, they can do that. I didn't know we could do that. And they'll do something similar. And then there'll be like a rise for a little while and then there'll be a depression. And I think one of the reasons there's a depression almost always is because the scammers come in there and they go, oh, everybody's willing to throw $20 out. All you got to do is XYZ. Well, then let's do that over and over until we wear out, our welcome there. Let's do it over and over until we fatigue the metal or whatever. And what we end up with is people are apprehensive at best or like, negative about the whole idea of crowdfunding. So anyway, I always think it's interesting to I don't know, think about how far we could go if we really knew how strong we could be with the number of people we have out there. Anyway, that being
True.
said, we don't. Nobody sits there and because here's the thing: you can't. You get in. It's like you don't shine a light on it. You don't put out a T-shirt, let's say, and go, "Hey, buy our T-shirt." By the way, if you love the Second Amendment, thumb up our thing and buy our T-shirt. And you say that to 200,000 people, a million people, 100,000 people, whatever I said, 500 million people or 500,000 people, whatever, some large number of people. Nobody goes, "Hey, I made $30,000 when I mentioned that." Like that pays a lot of people's bills for a while. pays a lot of marketing. It pays a lot of, those back end bills that nobody pays attention to when you go, oh, that guy makes $1 million a year. Yeah, he makes $1 million, but he's probably paying $500,000 to get to the million. I mean, still doing fine, but there's a lot of bills to pay there, and that's where people don't pay attention that those bills get paid by just saying buy a T-shirt in front of enough people, because buy a T-shirt turns into $5 every time a T-shirt gets. Again, how many T-shirts get sold when you say that in front of 1 million people, or 500,000 people, or 250,000 people? 1,000?
Hmm.
$5,000 worth of T-shirts? Is it $20,000 worth of T-shirts? Is it $37,000 worth of T-shirts consistently on average? So those T-shirt companies ain't gonna
Yeah.
really shine on that. They want you to buy T-shirts, but they don't want you to pay attention to just how much T-shirts are getting sold. And then very rarely do people show up and say, "Hey, have an entire stadium of people show up all wearing the same T-shirt," so that someone says to themselves, "Whoever made this T-shirt made a couple of bucks." Anyway, so there's some money out there, and I like the idea of the crowdfunding where people discover the power there without being tricked or forced or conned into the power of that. Anyway, I went on a
I
tangent.
do too. Never mind. Hey, great show, man. I start talking again, I'm never going to be able to eat.
Exactly. So everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll shut it off here. Oh, you know what? I'll put some kind of ending on here so that it has a fancy ending. Maybe.